From BetQL, it's time for the Daily Tip.
This is like Disneyland for adults.
If I wanted to have fun, I was going to go to Disneyland with my kids.
With Michael Jenkins.
And you can say I'm a homer. I don't care. Sark has built this program like Nick Saban built Alabama. This is a really deep roster. This is a national championship roster.
And Chelsea Messenger.
Let's try to beat the rest of the network at being degenerates, because maybe, just maybe, we can win in that regard.
I do like the idea of a parlor.
Hey, Dad, don't forget about me, the Dunkster.
Presented by BetMGM. The sportsbook born in Vegas. Download the app today. Please gamble responsibly.
If anyone can be a degenerate, it can be us.
It is the Daily Tip for BetQL, presented by BetMGM. Great to have you with us on a Tuesday morning. Coming up on the show, we got another jam-packed 3 hours for you. We get things started with a recap of last night's best bets before we wrap up Week 13 in the NFL as the Browns visit the Broncos in the Mile High City. Then we look ahead to Week 14 in pro football, including a massive matchup on Thursday night, Vikings and Lions. And that's followed by my locally famous streaming corner at 640. We'll find out what everyone has been watching and streaming recently. In the 7 o'clock hour, we will talk championship week in college football as Georgia and Texas meet head-to-head for the second time this season. That is followed by more from Week 14 in pro football before Chelsea puts together her teaser at 740. And then during the 8 o'clock hour, we will bring in our PJ Glasser from BetQL Send It In to get his early bets in both college and the NFL. Then it is Donkster time and our favorite wagers of the day at 8:40. I'm Michael Jenkins, live in the nation's capital. She is Chelsea Messenger, live in the Music City, Nashville, Tennessee. Chelsea, what's going on this Tuesday? Good morning.
Yeah, good morning. It's a great morning here because we got our first snow of the season here in Nashville. So everybody is feeling, a little panicked. I, of course, was one of those panicked Southerners that went to the store last night. Got to get that milk. Got to get those eggs. Got to get that bread. So I definitely did that. I'm not sure if we have school today. Do you get that whimsical feeling about snow? Like here in the South, we get it maybe once or twice a season. So when we get it, it's a big deal. I know you grew up in Texas, but I'm not sure what part, geographically speaking. Did you guys get a lot of snow?
We did not. I grew up in the sticks, West Texas. Now, sort of the beginning of West Texas. I know a lot of people, when they think of West Texas, they think of maybe Odessa or Midland or Lubbock, Amarillo, El Paso. So we weren't that far west, but we were still right there, sort of the gateway to the west. We were definitely West Texas if you looked at the geography. So we would get a little bit of snow. I remember one time when I was a kid, I was so excited. We got snow, and then it melted by noon. So that's sort of the experience I had. I didn't really experience snow for real until I came here to D.C., and that was, 20 years ago now. So that's when I really figured out what snow is about, as opposed to, let's build a snowman. Oh, and now he's just a small ball. So, yes, it was a huge difference in what I had experienced growing up.
Yeah, but now the snow days for school hit different because I'm please make them go to school. I need my me time.
Yeah.
Just kidding. Snow days are still awesome. It's just the snow is not covering the ground. It's what they call a dusting. So I'm sure they'll probably still have school today.
Well, we had a dusting of dubs last night.
Flawless victory.
Well, or as we often say, there it is. I was going to say tree. Oh, flawless victory. Fine. We had a mediocre week last week on the show. Chelsea, I know it wasn't your favorite, but you start off this week with a dub.
Yeah, Mama needed a win this week. And so I was doing something I normally do not do, which it came through, but I still feel like it was not the smartest of bets. Had the Broncos on the money line, and I combined it with Cortland Sutton, 50+. Both of those come home. It is a winner. The Broncos won 41-32, and Cortland Sutton had 102. So I'm not sure why I need to play the 50+, but I don't know. It made me feel a little bit better playing it conservatively, but normally not the greatest approach.
Hey, I will never knock a parlay, no matter how it's put together, whether it's 2 legs, 10 legs, whatever. I love a good parlay. Now, obviously, if we're being smart bettors, and you're putting together these monster parlays every night, maybe not the smartest decision. But, a 2-leg parlay, I love those, and I feel like that you can find some value if you pick it in the right spots. That's not what you normally do, but nice job. I was on just a regular bet. Cortland Sutton over 60.5 receiving yards. So was the Donkster, so a couple dubs there. And that means we all start the week 1-0 here on the Daily Tip from BetQL, presented by BetMGM. Wow, what a game we saw last night on Monday night. The Broncos beating the Browns 41-32. Broncos laying 6. They were minus 250 on the money line. Your total set at 41 and a hook. Hell of a game. Jameis Winston, amazing for the Browns, setting a franchise record. 34-48, 497 yards and 4 touchdowns. But with good Jameis also comes bad Jameis.
Winston is picked. Intercepted. Bonito. Goodbye. No flags. Touchdown, Denver.
All calls from Joe Buck on ESPN. The pick 6 by Bonito in the second quarter makes it 21-10 Broncos. And then Denver strikes again in the beginning of the third when Bo Nix looks deep.
3rd and 11. Down the middle. Mims. He's gone. Oh. Touchdown, Denver. Marvin Mims walks it in.
He does so from 93 yards away, so it's 28-17 Broncos before Jameis answers right back by connecting with a former Bronco.
Can Cleveland answer? They try with Judy. They got him. He's going the other way. Touchdown as the Browns and Broncos trade blows.
It is a 70-yard score. Browns pull within 3. It's 28-25. Now, 34-32 Broncos, under 2 minutes to play, and Jameis looking to respond.
As he was headed out of bounds, here's a pick! Intercepted! And that should end the night. McMillan, the other way, touchdown!
Jaquan McMillan gets it done as, again, the Broncos win 41-32. Winston becomes the first NFL quarterback in history to throw for more than 400 yards with at least 4 touchdown passes and also 2 pick sixes. When it was done, Jameis with a simple response to his up-and-down game.
I know I'm better than this. I know. I'm just praying for the Lord to deliver me from pick sixes.
Oh, Jameis, how do you not love Jameis Winston? He just wants the Lord to deliver him from pick sixes. Meanwhile, Jerry Jeudy, 9 catches, 235 yards, most ever in NFL history by a player against his former team. But Chelsea, it is the Broncos who improved to 8-5, increasing their chances of making the postseason for the first time since 2015. What a game.
Yeah, this was a fun one. I vote that we put Jameis in primetime at least once a month. Like maybe every game that the Jets were supposed to be in, since Aaron Rodgers was supposed to be the big-time quarterback. Let's replace all the Jets, games with the Browns. I know that they only have 3 wins this year, but this was fun to watch. Like, obviously, Jameis Winston as a person is very fun to listen to, but when you throw for almost 500 yards, like, this was a fun game. It felt like Maction, to where something was happening every single play. And on a more serious note, do you have questions about the Broncos defense after this game? Because I think that's the biggest takeaway from me. If Jameis Winston is out there looking like Tom Brady for the most part, I know the pick sixes obviously are not great, but still the fact that he sliced and diced this Broncos defense that statistically was one of the best in the NFL, it's not a good sign for a Broncos team that I feel like now the benchmark has been lifted from, hey, let's try to be an above 500 team to now this is a team probably with playoff hopes and hoping to get a playoff win. So when you look at it through that lens, I have major questions about this defense.
I don't know if I quite agree. I certainly think they gave up more points than I would have ever expected in this game. I think for me, I tend to take more of a macro view, which is, look, if this becomes a thing, then okay, then you're thinking you go into the postseason and one of your strengths, maybe the strength of your team, your defense, isn't performing like you saw early in the year. But I also think if you look at the course of the NFL season, like you see good offenses suddenly get shut down. You see great defenses get carved up. It's like, I cover the Commanders, as we know, and they started the season one of the best offenses in the National Football League. And what happened? Defenses started to adjust, and then the Commanders had to adjust in kind, and the Commanders looked great last week. So the NFL is very tricky in this way, and I think it's easy to get caught up in week-to-week results. So if this becomes a thing for the Broncos, I would absolutely worry. I also think this is one of those games where Jameis Winston just kind of went off. When he was great, he was great. And any defense on any given Sunday can have a bad day. I tend to look at it as more of a bad night for the Denver defense.
I think it's really easy to get caught up in stats too, though, because I did that with the Broncos. And now that I'm looking at their schedule, they haven't played the best of quarterbacks. It's been a healthy diet of like mid-level teams. Obviously, the win over the Browns last night, Raiders, Falcons, and then you have to go to the Panthers, the Saints, the Raiders, the Jets, the Bucks, and that's it. It looks like it's a team that maybe is good when you're facing, the mid-level opponents. Like we talked about this from a betting standpoint. The Broncos have been really good in the games that they're supposed to win. Now they're a perfect 6-0 straight up and against the number, I believe. Need to do the math here. But still against teams when they are favored in the game. So maybe that's the angle moving forward. You play the Broncos when they're playing those teams and they're playing in the games they're supposed to win. But I'm not so sure about the Broncos moving forward when they're playing the best of the best.
I would also say that, you have to look at a game in its totality. And so while this may have been a setback for the Broncos defense, this was a huge step forward for the Broncos offense. Early in the season, there's no way that Bo Nix would be looking deep. There's no way that he would be able to create the offense that he created last night. Now, it wasn't his best night, but he was still pretty good last night. 18 of 35, almost 300 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 picks. But this was a guy who looked downfield, found Marvin Mims. That is a pass he doesn't make earlier in the season. This is a Denver offense that doesn't win this game early in the season. And whenever you talk to NFL head coaches, what do you always hear? We want to play complementary football. We want both sides of the football and special teams to all play well. And the reason why they say that is because when you have a Broncos defense that struggled last night, well, guess what? They were picked up by a Broncos offense that has not performed like that. So I understand the concern, and I'm not going all in on Denver, but I do see a lot of improvement on the offense. I see a defense that didn't have its best night, and I see a coach in Sean Payton who has been there before. It's not a coincidence, as I mentioned, that the Broncos have not been to the playoffs in 9 years, and all of a sudden they're trending towards making the postseason with a rookie quarterback and a second-year head coach in Sean Payton. So they're putting together, I think, the right pieces. I don't know how deep they can go based on their schedule, but I do think that if you're talking about a franchise trying to build back from the Russell Wilson era, they're doing it the right way.
Oh, for sure. I definitely think there are things to build on because start from the bottom. Like, look at the teams with rookie quarterbacks. There's been a lot of the opposite of success stories in the NFL. So you start with Bo Nix, and what he's done this season is very admirable. And I think Sean Payton's done a great job around him. And here's, I think, building on the point that you were trying to make, if you can find ways to win in different styles of game, that's another feather in your cap. Because we've seen this Broncos team kind of hang around against like good teams in their division in low-scoring affairs. And we said, okay, well, Bo Nix is not asked to do too much. The defense is going to be counted on. Well, now you wanted a shootout. So like you said, it's another feather in your cap for different ways to win, because isn't that how we judge the best teams in the NFL is you can win in multiple ways. Like look at the Lions, how many different ways they can win. Even when one aspect of their team lets them down, the other ones bring them up. So I know this Broncos defense, yardage wise gave up a ton to Jameis Winston, but also really opportunistic. This is what the Broncos defense was last year. I believe they led the league in turnovers while, taking control of those turnovers, I guess I should say. So all around, I would say at the end of the night, a win is a win is a win, and it's still a good thing for the Broncos.
Oh, no question about it. And I just love Jameis Winston. I feel so bad for the guy. And what's I think interesting about this is that if you look at Jameis's career, this game is sort of Jameis in a nutshell, right? Because he comes out, and I forget what he said before the game, like, I'm not worried about the mile-high city. I'm worried about getting down and playing Browns football. And then he goes out and he balls out but makes some crucial mistakes. And if you look at his best year, which was in 2019 against the Bucs, had 33 touchdowns, but also led the league with 30 picks. So this is sort of Jameis's style, right? Like, he'll get you a lot of points, but he'll make some mistakes as well.
Yeah, it's the full Jameis.
Yeah.
But if you're a team with only 3 wins on the season, I would much rather have a guy like this than somebody who can't do anything for your offense. Like, would you rather watch this or Deshaun Watson do whatever he's calling, football when he's out there? No, I'd rather watch Jameis. So at least have a chance.
Yeah, the only thing I want to do with Deshaun Watson is watch him being walked to a prison cell. I would enjoy that quite a bit. But hey, that's me. Coming up next here on the show, we'll continue talking pro football and look ahead to week 14 in the NFL. We already here? Yeah, we are. Who do we like on Thursday? With the Vikings rolling into Motown, we got that and a whole lot more. It is coming up on the Daily Tip from BetQL, presented by BetMGM. Thanks for waking up with us on this Tuesday. We're coming back.
Chelsea and Jenks will be right back on the Daily Tip on the BetQL network, presented by BetMGM on the Sportsbook born in Vegas. Download the app today. Please gamble responsibly. Welcome back to the Daily Tip, presented by BetMGM. The sportsbook born in Vegas. Download the app today with Michael Jenkins and Chelsea Messenger on the BetQL network.
Yeah, we're back. It is a Tuesday on the Daily Tip from BetQL, presented by our good friends BetMGM, the sportsbook born in Vegas. Coming up on the show, we will check out Week 14 in the NFL and what will be a crucial Thursday night matchup in Motown between the Packers and the Lions. I am so angry about this next story, I don't even know where to start. The golden at bat in Major League Baseball.
Oh.
We got to talk about it sometime. Might as well be now. I'm about to lose my mind. Did you hear this dumb story? You have to have heard this dumb story.
Yes, I have.
Rob Manfred, who needs to step down immediately, just on principle, has come up with this harebrained idea called the golden at bat. And look, they might massage it a few different ways and have parameters on it, but the basic idea is that each team in every game has one at bat, a golden at bat, where they can choose its best hitter at any situation and put that hitter in the lineup at the plate at any time. They can do it one time. I cannot tell you how much I hate this idea. First of all, this isn't baseball. This is changing the game. There's a difference between the evolution of a game, which has to happen in all sports. Like a pitch clock maybe speeds up the game, doesn't change the game. Making the bases a little bit bigger maybe adds more steals, but steals have always been a part of baseball. The game evolves, right? But a golden at bat where you just randomly put in a dude, your best hitter, in any situation. And you know what sucks about this? I was thinking about this last night. I couldn't sleep. I was so angry. I was thinking about this. What does this do? This gives an advantage to the teams that already have a massive advantage. Like the Dodgers, the Yankees, they're going to spend more than anyone, right? They have the best hitters in the game. They can spend more than anyone. So what's going to happen? In these games, it gives them an even bigger advantage because not every team has a Shohei. Not every team has an Aaron Judge. And having a pinch hitter or having someone at the bottom of the lineup come through, that's exciting. That's a part of baseball. I just hate the idea that will change the fabric of the game. I haven't liked Rob Manfred since he said that the World Series trophy was a piece of metal when he completely jumbled and mismanaged that Astros cheating situation. You know what, Chelsea? Let's just go ahead and in the bullpens of every ballpark, we'll put a 3-point line and a basketball goal, and once a month a team gets to have Steph Curry come in, and if he hits a 3-point shot, they get 2 runs. Like, what are we doing here? This is an absolute travesty and a stupid idea. I hate this idea.
Well, I think the biggest thing is nobody asked for this.
No.
Literally nobody has been asking for this. We've been asking for all sorts of things from baseball. You know, maybe the games were a little bit too long. Okay, you did good. You implemented the pitch clock. Literally nobody is saying, okay, we need this weird rule where we're going to go against everything baseball has stood for the last 100 years, you know, because we already have pinch hitters. Like, why do we need the golden at bat? You're right. This feels like a rule that they're trying to implement to try to draw on the ratings of the top players. Like we see this in other leagues where they change the rules to try to mold it to the guys that are playing at the time so they can give them a bigger platform. Remember when the NBA implemented more teams in the playoffs? It's because they wanted Zion Williamson to be in the playoffs. They did it so the Pelicans would have a chance. Now we're doing this so we can put in Shohei Ohtani, Aaron Judge, so they can promote baseball even more, which I understand. You're trying to get ratings. That's fine. But when you're alienating the fans that have been here, that truly love the game of baseball, that's when you're overstepping. Because those are the people who are watching, you know, in the middle of August, in the middle of July. Don't ruin those people's view of baseball. So yes, it feels like a very stupid rule. That you're right. It's going to make the rich richer and the poor poorer. Like, who are the A's going to put out there?
A dude from the stands.
Silence.
Look at this guy. He's got a bat. Is that a legit bat? It's aluminum. Who cares? It's Rob Manfred. He won't care. Get on down here. Come on, big guy. We're playing in a triple league or a AAA ballpark anyway. Come on down here. Who cares? Oh, God. I cannot believe this idea came about. And out of nowhere, it's like Rob Manfred is just sitting around going,
How can we make more money? That's what it is.
How can I make the dumbest decision possible today? We'll call it, let's see. How about a golden ticket? And every Major League Baseball player plays the lot. No, that's not it. Golden at bat. Old Robbie's onto something. It's so stupid. And I think
we already have pinch hitters.
Yes.
Like, what? Like, we already have this.
Yes. It
but
takes
with
away one of the
rules.
great parts of the game. There are guys who are pinch hitters, and that's what they do, and it makes it exciting. Like, okay, this guy, he's a great pinch hitter. He's good in certain spots. You take away that, give it to someone else. I'm so angry. And I said to myself, I won't watch baseball ever again. This happens. I mean, I probably will, but it will definitely take away from the sport, because then there is a fundamental shift in the sport that you're watching. Then it's not the same sport. Like I said, there's a difference between, okay, let's evolve the sport and let's just make a left turn and make it something different.
Yeah, and literally nobody was asking for this. Like, that's what I keep coming back to. Like, there was no outcry from the fans saying, let's make a wonky rule to try to make baseball different. Literally, like, some of the only things that I've heard from, like, casual fans have been like, bring steroids back, make the fields smaller so they can hit more home runs. Literally nobody was saying, let's make a golden batter. No, we already have a pinch hitter. So, like, this idea, I don't even know who had this idea. Do you see where it was stemming from? Like, did Rob Manfred make this up? I'm sure he didn't. He doesn't seem that creative.
No, I have no idea. I don't get it. Baseball's runs are up. Like, we got a ton of runs in baseball. The sport, I believe, has become more popular and more exciting than it has been in years. So why are you messing with it? Look at me, Rob Manfred. Quit your job. Walk away. You made money. I need you to stop. Bill?
You know where this came from?
Oh, no.
The Savannah Bananas.
Oh, my God.
Did it really?
Yes.
You're taking cues from the Savannah Bananas?
And I love those guys.
No, they're great for what they do.
Guys.
What they do is
fantastic. But we don't dance on the Major League Baseball field before we throw a pitch. We don't come up to bat with flaming bats.
Right.
We don't do that. They're entertaining. They're the Harlem Globetrotters of baseball. It's awesome.
But that's what they do.
We don't need this.
Ladies and gentlemen, Gavin Stone has brought out the river dance. People love it here at Chavez Ravine. Oh, and here comes Will Smith. Like, this is a Savannah Bananas idea.
And the Savannah Bananas only allow it to happen in the 9th inning. Major League Baseball is proposing hey, you get bases loaded in the bottom of the 6th, and your guy is not going to be up for a couple more. Go ahead, Juan Soto. I know you're batting 3rd. Go ahead and hit the 8th spot here in the 6th inning.
Well, you can do it. This has been a tough year for the Tampa Bay Rays, but not this evening, because here they are with the Rockets in the 2nd inning. Look at those legs. What a dance. Oh, the choreography is unbelievable. I don't want to see any of the I cannot believe this is where this idea came from. I'm just getting angrier as the show goes on.
And imagine, like, try being a pitcher in this situation, or hell, even a manager, where you're trying to manage the righty-lefty mix in the lineup, and they're just like, well, we're just going to throw somebody else in there. I understand you can do this with pinch hitters, but here's my other question. Does this have any ramifications on, like, accomplishments and what people do? Because if you're inserting, like, Aaron Judge into the lineup, every single game in extra time, he gets an extra bat every single game. Does that do anything for his numbers when you're looking at, like, yearly statistics? Because you're looking at somebody like Aaron Judge for season-long home runs. Does that make a difference?
Yeah, and then here's another problem. It creates an unfair advantage for superstar players or great hitters, right? Because they can come in and they will get extra at-bats that aren't normal, right? Extra at-bats allocated to them because of the golden at-bat. And then look, how do you score this thing? Imagine being an old school person who keeps score. You'd be like, I mean, And here's the thing. Imagine this, okay? And this is a potential scenario which they would probably have to work out. Let's say that you're the Yankees, for example, right? And you got 2 outs in the 8th or whatever, couple men on, and you want to bring in Aaron Judge, a batter, early, okay? So he strikes out. Next inning, it's his turn to bat. Again, you used the golden bat on him for the final out of the previous inning, but that was the batter before him, so now he gets to hit again. Back-to-back appearances at the plate. What are you going to do? How bizarre would that be? Aaron Judge back at the plate now after the golden bat. Rob Manfred. Oh, and there's the commissioner smiling, and he's twiddling his thumbs and playing Wordle. Like, yeah, moron.
So if you walk somebody, say, okay, you walked Juan Soto to get rid of Juan Soto, do the Yankees just send him right back to the plate?
According to Banana Ball, yes. What would happen is the person
pinch runner,
the person who they hit for would then take their place on the base paths. Correct.
Oh my gosh.
So if Gleyber Torres was supposed to hit, Gleyber, whatever his name is,
Gleyber.
If he's supposed to hit and Soto hits for him and walks, and then Soto's supposed to be up next because, like, say there were 2 outs, Torres would just then go run for him, and Soto would come back to the plate. It all makes sense. I mean, I don't know why you have a problem.
We're heading straight towards
so
idiocracy.
Awful.
And they'll cut away to Rob Manfred, and he'll be licking like Cheetos dust off his fingers. Like, oh, I'm doing great.
So intentional walks would be ultimately taken out almost. You know, like as far as strategy goes, you know, intentional walks have been a thing for quite some time. It feels like they would be pretty much negated if the other manager wants to be really petty.
Hey, why don't we just add to it? If you have a team that wants to bring in, if the Pirates are taking on the Yankees and they want to put in Aaron Judge, bring in Paul Skeens. Let him go one-on-one. One at bat. Savannah Bananas. I like the Savannah Bananas, okay? But taking ideas from the Savannah Bananas and implementing them into Major League Baseball.
It would be like if the NBA suddenly said, well, we'll just do the Elam ending every game instead of just the All-Star game. It's the same thing. They're just stealing it from the basketball tournament. Which that argument came up the other day as well because of what happened in the Cleveland-Boston game. They've talked about. Did you see that game? 34 free throws in the last 17 seconds or whatever it was?
Oh, I did not see that.
Oh, it was horrific. I don't think it was 34, but it was like just a massive amount of free throws in the last 30 seconds of the game. And everybody said, we have to put an end to this because Cleveland would be up 3, and to keep Boston from shooting a 3, they fouled them. So the Celtics would go to the line, shoot 2. So now they're down 1. Cleveland would inbound the ball. Celtics would immediately foul because they need the ball back. Cleveland would go, make their 2. Now they're up 3 again. Boston inbound, foul them again. It went on. It took a half hour to play the last 30 seconds of the game. And everybody went, we need the Elam ending. No, you don't. No, you don't. That's one game out of
That's part of the
however many.
strategy of basketball,
Correct.
though. So,
Correct.
like, I know some of these things and some of these, like, endings or whatever, they can be, like, a little lame to watch sometimes, but it's the fabric of basketball. And it's the fabric of the strategy that, like, baseball has been. Like I said, it takes away the strategy of intentional walks. It takes away the strategy of, you know, whoever you're throwing out there to the righty-lefty mix. So it's just, okay, like, let's not try to eliminate everything that makes the sport the sport.
I'm in a bad mood now. Okay.
Right?
Yes.
Nice job, Jenks.
Yes. It's my own fault.
This is your fault.
I'm blaming Bill. I mean, I know I was going to be upset when I talked about this because I was getting angry reading about it. I actually saw your I was going to say tweet, I'm trying to be better, your post, whatever. It's the same thing. And I was like, is this real? That was one of those things when I honestly thought at first, I go, Bill just got duped. That would never happen. And then I read it. I was like, wait, this is serious? And I was so angry. And then finding out that the inspiration was the Savannah Bananas. Again, we love the Bananas, but this has no place in Major League Baseball. No place. It would ruin the sport. And, you know, it just goes back to the old adage. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. do find a different commissioner. How about that? Can we find someone else who can focus on anything else besides baseball? I mean, my God, the golden at bat. This would ruin baseball, Chelsea.
Did they ask any of the players? Like, I don't feel like the players would like this rule either. Or did Rob Manfred just, flex his muscle and say, well, I'm the commissioner. Too bad.
It sounds, we're just playing for a piece of metal anyway. What's the big deal? And that is your preview of the Packers and Lions. We got plenty of NFL coming up this show, I can assure you. Coming up, what true crime drama have I been watching, and will Chelsea finally get through Hot Frosty? Streaming Corner, next on the Daily Tip from BetQL, presented by BetMGM.
Hey, it's Joe Ostrowski. Join me and Sammy P on BetQL Daily, weekday mornings at 9 Eastern, where we look to give you the insider edge and insights to help you make smarter bets.
Let's get back to the Daily Tip with Chelsea Messenger and Michael Jenkins on the BetQL Network, presented by BetMGM. The sportsbook born in Vegas. Download the app today. Please gamble responsibly.
Welcome back to the show. Yeah. The Daily Tip from BetQL, presented by BetMGM. Hope you're having a great morning. Got the whole crew here. I'm Michael Jenkins. She's Chelsea Messenger. Bill Rowland, executive producer, along. We got Double D, Dylan Mitchell, the glue, holding things together on the production side as well. So we're all here. Almost time for the streaming corner. What have you been watching? Grab yourself a seat, and we'll tell you what you should be streaming and maybe what you should avoid. So quick question before we get into this. I'm getting excited about championship week in college football. And as I mentioned on this show, knock on wood, I am not going to the SEC championship game to watch Texas and Alabama, or Texas and Georgia, I should say. But I do have a room reserved in Atlanta just in case for the national championship game. And I did this back in September because you know what they did last year, which killed me when I was looking at potential national championship game accommodations. You can reserve a hotel room, but you get locked in. Like you can't get a return on that, or you can't get, your money back. So if you lock yourself in, you're paying for that hotel room whether you use it or not. But I found a place not far from Mercedes-Benz where I can cancel it week of. So I'm golden there. But I've never been to Atlanta, Chelsea. Has anyone here ever been to Atlanta? I've never been.
Oh, my gosh.
I know.
How have you never been to Atlanta?
That's what I mean. I know. It's crazy.
I know Chelsea's been to Atlanta.
Chelsea, you've been to Atlanta, right?
Yeah, I've been to Atlanta so many times. I can't
haven't.
believe you haven't been to Atlanta. What have you been doing with your life, Jenks?
Vermont. I just, for some reason, I don't think I've even had a layover in Atlanta. No, I've been to a lot of, I drove through Georgia once on a trip to Disney World. That doesn't count. We didn't go through Atlanta. We didn't stop. I've never been to Atlanta. So I don't know if we're going to end up there. I have my doubts, but just in case, I want to be smart about it because I will go. And then I thought, I can't believe here I am. I turned 51 here in a few days, and I've never been. What's it like? Do you like the ATL?
Yeah, it sounds like you need to go regardless. You're planning just a trip to Atlanta.
Yeah.
I will say it's not one of my favorite cities. Like, I am sure that there are areas and things to do. Like, if you look hard enough and if you know somebody who lives there. But I've been there plenty of times. Like, back when I was a reporter in Columbus, Georgia, which is about 2 hours away from Atlanta, every single big game is in Atlanta. Like, obviously, you have the kickoff games for college football, the SEC championship game. So, like, I cover a lot of games in Atlanta. So, like, I have only been, like, on a work base there. Like, we did some things after the game, but it's not a city that I would, like, book a vacation to, though. Like, I think it's okay. I'm sure they have good restaurants, but, like, what's the main draw other than sports?
Strip clubs, probably. I mean,
Wings?
that is a
Cheetah Lounge.
okay. Wings and strippers. Hey, that sounds like a great time to me. Maybe I will go on vacation now that we're talking about it. Football? Come on. I don't feel like Atlanta is a big time, but there are great cities in this country. Atlanta is one of them, where they're not necessarily vacation destinations, but you end up going there for whatever event and can have a great time.
I think that they have some really nice residential areas. Like, I know some people who live there that they're really, really wealthy parts of Atlanta. I'm trying to remember if it's like north or south of the city, but as far as tourism goes, like, you don't really hear of people going to vacations in Atlanta. So maybe I'm missing something. I'm sure somebody will tell me on Twitter, say Atlanta's the greatest city ever. So I don't know. Maybe I'm missing out too. But Jenks, I do think you probably need to go. Like, it just feels like you've done like a circle around it, like Texas to then like the Eastern Seaboard. It's like, no, not so fast, Atlanta. So maybe you do need to go.
Nah, go down there, visit Magic City for a while, have some wings, go watch some football. It'll be a good time. Well, what was a good time on Netflix? I don't know if this next show was a good time. It was very good. I watched Who Killed John Benet Ramsey.
Oh,
and I have to tell you, that was a tough watch. It's only 3 episodes. It's a tough watch, but not why you think. It's tough because Look, that was a terrible thing that happened. That murder has never been solved. But I think that watching this, you will have a completely different perspective on what you think happened and how this investigation was conducted. I was kind of crying at the end, I have to say. I felt so bad for the parents. And John Ramsey is sort of front and center. He's the dad. And then Patsy Ramsey, and she passed away many years ago, battling with cancer. And when you see behind the scenes, like what they have done to try and solve this thing, and of course, they've been accused. Their son has been accused, even though he was cleared by police. Like what they have gone through is remarkable, and the amount of misinformation out there is remarkable. And I just thought that at the end, you know, this father who has spent decades now trying to figure out who murdered his little girl, who's been accused of murdering her himself, here he is, years later, his wife has passed on, and he is standing front and center, still pressuring authorities, still getting the word out, still doing whatever he can to find the person or people that did this. And there's a lot of other suspects out there, and this documentary has reignited the investigation a little bit, but it made me feel really terrible for a guy that took on a lot of heat, just like his wife did, and just like his family did. And here he is, because you've seen this before, like with O.J. Simpson back in the day, right? Different cases, but once he was absolved of guilt in court, did he start trying to find the real killers? No. He was like, whoo, I'm off. I'm playing golf. This family has never stopped looking. So from that aspect, it was really tough to watch, and some of the details are very difficult as well. So it's great. True crime. You're going to learn a lot, and you'll see all the misinformation that was out there. You will have a different perspective, but it is a tough watch.
Yeah, I remember this case when it first came to the forefront. I was just looking it up. It was 1996, I believe, was when she died. So maybe it was around that time. This was a huge deal. Like before that you had like options of what to watch on TV. I remember as like a little girl, because we watch the news all the time, this was like a major national case. I will say, I don't think I'll be watching this because I have a 4-year-old daughter. So, like, I don't think this is going to make the card for me because it feels a little too close to home.
Yes.
Jenks, let me give you an example. Like, we were watching Home Alone yesterday, and I cried at the end because I felt so bad for the mom. So I don't think I'll be watching John Benet Ramsey. I think my heart cannot handle it. But Jenks, that's what I was going to talk about. We watched Home Alone for the first time with my 4-year-old.
Tell us about it.
And she had some interesting musings. So obviously, Home Alone, an absolute Christmas classic. I obviously wanted to watch it. But my 4-year-old, as we're watching the bad guys try to enter the house over and over, she says, man, the bad guys, they keep failing. But the important thing is that they keep trying. And that's all you can do. I said, like, that's not the moral of the story. Like, I appreciate you learning that you got to keep trying, but, like, that's not what Home Alone is all about.
No. That's a good perspective. That's a different take on Home Alone, right? Right? Here's
but
a take on Home.
They didn't stop trying.
Yeah, it's like someone, well, my friend Daryl, I was going to say someone like it was random. My friend Daryl sent me an Instagram reel. And like in the middle of the night, I was like, what are you watching, Daryl? And it was about the Wizard of Oz. And it was how the real villain in the Wizard of Oz is what? The Good Witch, Gilda, I think her name is. And
that's the plot of Wicked,
Glenda?
Is it not?
Glenda? Isn't it Glenda, not Gilda?
It might be Gilda. I don't know.
No, I thought it was Glenda,
I don't
the Good
know.
Witch.
Oh, is it Glenda? It's probably
Galinda.
Galinda?
Galinda.
Sure. All
okay,
right.
Galinda.
We're experts here.
So, yeah, experts. Francis, Francis the Good Witch, Galinda. And so it was, if you look at the Wizard of Oz and this happened, she's the real evil one. You know how people do. They'll look at a different movie and give you a different perspective. So that's what that reminded me of. Like, hey, here's a take you haven't heard on Home Alone. So well done, Chelsea.
Yeah, let me ask you another question because I am starting to see a trend with some new movies. It feels like we've gone away from the direction of sequels, and now we're going to origin stories. Have you seen the new Lion King movie that's like centered on Mufasa? Wicked, obviously, is an origin story. And now they're doing this with TV shows, Young Sheldon, obviously with The Big Bang Theory. They're doing this with Yellowstone. So would you rather watch an origin story or a sequel?
I want to see a sequel. I don't want to see the origin story. Once I see the actual story, I'm like, you know what? Because there's some inherent background there. I mean, I guess it's sort of interesting. But to me, I'd rather see, okay, what happens next? Because sort of built into an original story is you don't get all the details, but you get some sort of details as to how we got here, right? They don't go deep into it. And then when you're left at the end, you're like, I want to know. I think that's sort of human nature, too. What would happen after this? Can you imagine what the next 10 years would be like, or 20 years down the line, whatever happens after this particular caper, whatever it is? So I think I would go sequel. What about you?
I think I'd go sequel as well.
Yeah.
I think the origin stories only really draw me in when they're about the villain. Because isn't that what Wicked is kind of predicated on? You're trying to make the viewer have some sympathy, I suppose, for the Wicked Witch. So I think that's an interesting spin. Like, I don't want to hear an origin story about somebody who's already good. Like, we know they're a good person. Like, you got to make it more interesting than that. Like, I will not be seeing Mufasa. I have seen every single Lion King. I don't need to see another one.
Oh, well, I've never seen The Lion King.
I've never seen any of them.
No. If animation is a hard sell for me. It's just a hard sell for me. I think I've said that before. But I understand and appreciate that some of these movies are exceptional, and I understand why people are fans of them. It's just not really my vibe. I'll tell you what I do want to watch.
Well, you're an adult.
Yeah, I'm a man.
Right.
Chelsea. I'm a grown man. I only watch manly things. Although I did see that there is a yacht rock documentary on Max. Oh, and how
now
it's still
that's
relevant
a
today.
man watch.
Hey, let me tell you something. Man on a sailboat with a lady and some champagne. It's man stuff right there. I'll watch that as soon as I get home tonight. Coming up next, hey, it's championship week in college football. We're going to look ahead to which teams have the advantage from the SEC to the Mountain West. Hour 2 coming up on the Daily Tip from BetQL, presented by BetMGM. Great to have you along on a Tuesday. Coming back.
Chelsea and Jenks will be right back on the Daily Tip on the BetQL Network, presented by BetMGM on the Sportsbook Born in Vegas. Download the app today. Please gamble responsibly.
It's time for the Daily Tip
This is like Disneyland for adults.
If I wanted to have fun, I was going to go to Disneyland with my kids.
with Michael Jenkins.
And you can say I'm a homer. I don't care. Sark has built this program like Nick Saban built Alabama. This is a really deep roster. This is a national championship roster.
And Chelsea Messenger.
Let's try to beat the rest of the network at being degenerates, because maybe, just maybe, we can win in that regard.
I do like the idea of a parlor.
Hey, Dad, don't forget about me, the dogster.
Presented by BetMGM. The sportsbook born in Vegas. Download the app today. Please gamble responsibly.
If anyone can be a degenerate, it can be us.
Hour 2, the Daily Tip starts right now on the BetQL Network. I'm Chelsea Messenger. He's Michael Jenkins. And over the next hour, we have all kinds of things to talk about. We'll start with championship week in college football. Some massive games with huge implications in the college football playoff on deck this weekend. And then at 7:20, we'll go to the NFL. We'll take our first look at the NFL slate, see if some of these lines are worth playing now, or if you should wait till some of these lines move a little bit before you bet on them. And it's a Tuesday, which means it's time for my world famous Tuesday teaser. Kind of like those places that say they have like the world's best pie, and it's like in a suburb of Nashville, and you're like, yes, I'm sure your pie is world famous. I've never heard of it before. So that's kind of how my teasers are, I will say. Last week's hit, so we will try our best to deliver another teaser plus 160 to the pay window. All right, Jenk. So I feel like I tried to stay in the know when it comes to pop culture.
Okay.
I don't feel like I've done a great job of it lately, because I was looking at some of these like end of the year wrap up posts from the pop culture things that I follow. One such site is called Betches. So it's not a curse word, but it's, aimed at young women, and it's kind of pop culture driven. So their Betch of the year, and it shows all of these like timely pop culture figures. Okay. And let me tell you, I only knew 2 of these. So let me ask you these names and see how many you know. Okay. So number 1 is Risa Tisa. No idea. Moo Dang. I've heard of Moo Dang. Charlie XCX. Heard of her. Alona Maher. And then Jules LeBron, which they show a picture. It is not LeBron James. She is not related to LeBron James in any way. How many of these have you heard of?
2. I know Moo Dang. Talked about, and then I know Charlie XCX because of the Apple Dance, because I watched Catherine practice that. So, I mean, even I know sort of, the whole whatever. I'm not going to do it.
Please do it.
No, for me, actually, 2 for 5. I got to say, I'm batting 400 when it comes to influencers. For me, that's huge. I am not someone who stays on the TikTok all the time, but I feel like between this show and between the lovely Catherine, listening to Lucy, being on X, whatever, I pick up a little bit of it, but I'm not hardcore into it. So I'm actually proud of 2 for 5.
Yeah, that's almost 500. We'll take it, for these old coots here on the show. I will say, after further research, I have heard of some of these. Alona Maher was on the rugby team. Remember that crazy finish for the U.S. women's rugby team at the Olympics, I believe, where they had like some crazy kickoff, I think, for like the 3rd place finish? We talked about it on the show.
Yeah,
I think she was that girl. So like that makes sense. Like I didn't know her name, but I know of her. And this Jules LeBron character is the creator of the very demure, very mindful trend on TikTok.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, you know what? I feel better. At least I know that trend. We talked about that return on the show. So, and honestly, I'm terrible with names. Like seriously. So I know that sounds like an excuse, but I am awful with names. Like I swear to God, when I get to know someone, for example, this is a perfect example. Like there's a bar down the street that I go to, not my normal bar. I know this is stunning information. And there's a woman in there who is very nice, and she knows my name, and she's so sweet. And every time I go in, she's like, "Hey, Michael, it's good to see you." I'm like, "Yeah, it's good to see you too." And I'm like, I cannot remember her name. And so finally, I sent myself an email. Her name is Lydia. And so I sent myself an email with the subject line, the bar, and I sent it to myself. I was like, the next time I go in, I'm going to figure out, and then I can put it together and say it. And I finally did, and so now I know her name. But it took like a few months, and this is someone I'm interacting with, like on a fairly regular basis. So I'm terrible at saying, oh, yeah, that's Jules LeBron or whoever that is. No wonder.
But I had heard of the trend, but I never knew this character's name. Like, that's the thing. Is like the trend goes viral, but sometimes you don't see like the originator or you don't even hear what their name is. You just see the actual video. I looked up Risa Tisa. Still don't know who this one is. It says the creator of the Who TF Did I Marry trend. Have you heard of that one? I've never
heard of that
one.
Well, it's like, a perfect example is the Hawk Tua girl. Does anyone really know her name, or do you just say the Hawk Tua girl? That's who you say. And that's why you don't take time to learn the names. You're like, oh, yeah, that's the very kind or very demure, or that's the Hawk Tua girl, or this person did this. So, because it's not it's the person responsible for the trend, but what's popular is the trend. So you focus on that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's like college football. The name on the front of the jersey should be more important than the name on the back of the jersey. So, TikTok is more important and the trend than the individual names. All right, so that was my attempt at segueing in to college football because we have some massive games over the weekend and some teams we have definitely heard of. So we will start in the Big Ten, where Ohio State will be noticeably absent. Ryan Day has been spotted just looking around saying, what happened? So it's Ohio State who's out, and it's Penn State and Oregon who are in. So in this one, we have Oregon laying 3.5, total of 50.5. So we kind of previewed these yesterday. So let's do a bit of a different spin. So let's rank these from a viewing perspective. Which championship game are you going to be the most excited to watch?
Well, I think it probably has to be Boise State and UNLV, right? It's
not Texas.
It's come on. It's Texas, Georgia, right? Doesn't it have to be? I always feel bad when I talk about it. But look, Texas is a great football team.
It's a big game.
Georgia is a great football team. It's the SEC. It's a rematch. So I don't know why you wouldn't want to tune into this game, number one. And I think Georgia has the advantage. Georgia mollywopped Texas the first time around, but also we've seen Georgia show some weakness down the stretch. This is a different Texas team now, I think. And if you look again at how that first game went, Georgia took advantage. It was Texas's fault, but they got the advantage of starting a lot of drives deep in Texas territory. I don't think that happens again. Texas tends to play better on the road, and this will be a road environment because this game is in Atlanta. These two defenses are rock solid. Man, I think I'd look at the under in a big way. The total is 48 and a hook. That seems high for these two defenses. So I think if we're just being honest, this could be a national title game. Of all of the matchups here, which one looks most like a potential national title game? It's Texas and Georgia. So I'm biased, but man, I cannot wait to watch this game. I think it's going to be great.
Let me ask you something. Do you think that some of these championship games mean any less because it feels like Texas and Georgia are going to be in the college football playoff regardless? Does it not? Does that take anything away from this?
I don't think so. I think that I would have said before the season that, okay, expanding this playoff maybe takes away from the regular season. Instead, I don't think that's been the case at all because now you have more teams who are in the mix. And yeah, there's a possibility that you could lose your conference championship game and be out. So that's kind of a new thing. But ultimately, we wouldn't have this many teams eligible in the first place if the playoff had not expanded. So I don't think it takes away from it at all. At the end of the day, it's about winning in college football. And there is a bit of a paradox here, right? Okay, what if you lose your conference championship game, but you don't get to play in the college football playoff? Well, that probably would have been the case before when we were talking about 4 teams in the playoff, right? So you wouldn't have had a shot anyway. So now it's just because the field has expanded. At the end of the day, This could be 12 teams. This could be 24 teams. There's always going to be an argument for the teams right on the fringe, win or lose, in whatever game it is at the end of the season. It's like that in college basketball. We're seeing that now in college football. I think it's great for the sport. So I don't think it takes away. I think it just adds to the intrigue.
I think both of these teams, especially for the SEC championship, and especially because Texas is new, like it still definitely means something to win the SEC title game. As far as the committee goes, I think they've gone on the record saying that they're not going to punish teams that lose in their conference championship games too much because, it's an added, game to their schedule, and they're not going to punish them for playing a quality opponent. But they have said that they might be rewarding the winners of these championship games with maybe some higher seedings. So now I'm going to ask you, which team can gain the most with a win in their conference championship game?
It's Boise State, because Boise State, if they win, is probably going to get a bye. Boise State will probably be the 4 seed. Now, here's the thing. This is where there's more of a risk reward in the Mountain West game than any other, right? Because if Boise State loses to UNLV, they drop in a big way. If Texas loses to Georgia, they're not going to drop too much, because that's not going to be considered a bad loss. Boise State at home, by the way, this is not a neutral site game. Boise State at home losing to the Rebels will drop Boise State in a significant manner. But if Boise State wins, all of a sudden you're talking about a 4 seed and a first-round bye. So the Broncos have a ton to gain by winning and a ton to lose if they somehow don't come out on top here. So oddly enough, I think it's the Mountain West title game that is interesting, or the most interesting from that perspective.
It also feels like if they get a first-round bye, which obviously is a big advantage, but then playing at home at Boise State, that's a long way for a lot of these teams. Yeah. I feel like that is a very good home field advantage. And plus, couldn't weather be a factor? That's outdoors, right? Especially this time of year. And I think that's a hot topic. After we've seen a lot of these NFL games kind of changed by the weather outcomes, with the snow.
Yeah.
If you have some of these northern teams that get home field advantage and we get some sort of weather element, do you think the SEC teams will be at a disadvantage?
Maybe. I also think, and this is probably not fair, that SEC teams are significantly better than Boise State. Now, I could be wrong. Look, Boise State gave Oregon all it wanted earlier in the season. So maybe I'm not giving the Broncos enough credit here. And I love Boise State. As you know, I worked in Boise. I covered the Broncos. That fan base is great. The blue turf is awesome. So I have a soft spot in my heart for the Broncos. But maybe this is a better way to put it. The SEC teams are more battle-tested, right? Because it's just a week in, week out grind. That's not necessarily what Boise State has faced in the Mountain West when they're taking on San Jose State or Wyoming, whoever it may be. They can play. But, yeah, is it an advantage for Boise State if you have to go to Boise and you have to play there on the blue turf, especially late December? It does get cold. It could snow. How many SEC teams are used to playing in the snow? None. I think I said earlier this year that Kentucky, when they played Texas, that was the farthest west that the Kentucky football team had ever played. Texas, Austin, Texas. So these SEC teams, unless it's maybe the Rose Bowl or something like that or some sort of bowl game out west, they're not accustomed to doing that. So, yeah, that would be an advantage for the Broncos, no question.
I think what makes me nervous for you is that, do you think the weather elements take away good defenses? Because we've seen that in the NFL. It's almost harder for the defenses to stand their ground and to pivot on a dime when there's snow. And all of this, could be for nothing. Maybe it's actually nice weather the week that these teams get these games. And maybe it's not going to be an issue. It's just one of those little factors that's going to be different. One of those little nuances that maybe plays a role. So it's kind of fun to talk about. Let me ask you real quick about SMU. Do you think they can change some opinions with a big win in the ACC championship game? Because it feels like a team that's flown under the radar for most of the year.
Yeah, I think so. And I I think the sabotage factor with SMU is their schedule isn't great. They haven't played a lot of teams, and Clemson is a good passing team with Cade Klubnik, and the Mustangs aren't necessarily very good at defending the pass. But I think even though SMU is the favorite here, there's no question they will use that to their advantage, like that motivational factor. Look, nobody is paying attention to us, and for them to beat Clemson and win the ACC title in their first year in the conference, they're the one. Clemson has been here. This is old hat for them, not for SMU. That motivation, I think, will play a big part for the Mustangs.
Yeah. Any way you slice it, we are excited for championship week in college football. Coming up next, going up a level, and we'll take our first look at the NFL slate for the weekend. Next on Daily Tip.
Chelsea and Jenks will be right back on the Daily Tip on the BetQL Network, presented by BetMGM on the Sportsbook Born in Vegas. Download the app today. Please gamble responsibly.
Yeah.
Welcome back to the Daily Tip, presented by BetMGM, the sportsbook born in Vegas. Download the app today with Michael Jenkins and Chelsea Messenger on the BetQL network.
All right, off and rolling on this Tuesday edition of the Daily Tip. In a few minutes, we'll take our first look at the NFL slate, and we just finished up talking about championship weekend in college football. If you ever miss any of our segments, you can always download the podcast. Just search the Daily Tip wherever you get your podcasts. So this was a leftover conversation that we didn't quite get to, but I think it's important because we saw an interesting line move last night in college football. Over at ESPN Bet, I believe it was where Alabama went from plus 105 to make the college football playoff to minus 200. This is a sizable move, Jenks. And so we were trying to talk this out. So there are 12 teams that are going to be in the college football playoff. And most of these teams, or a good chunk of these teams, won't be playing in their conference championship game. So a lot of, waiting and seeing to see like what happens, what unfolds. But the committee has said that they don't punish people for losing in the conference championship game, which, there's a chance that they could go back on whatever they say at any moment because they're the committee. They can kind of do what they want.
Right.
But do we think Alabama sneaks a way into the college football playoff? Like, it feels like if they even have one little opening, that the committee will certainly kick open the door for them, because obviously we've said this multiple times. It's a TV show, and they want the teams and the fan bases that draw rankings, or draw viewings, I should say. Do you think this line movement means something?
I don't know. Alabama's such an interesting case. I think all things being equal, they probably find a way to slide in. So they have that win over Georgia, but then they have that awful loss to Oklahoma where they scored 3 points. I think ultimately when you say it's a TV show, I think that's the real key here. So this is still a show. And ratings still matter, advertising dollars still matter, and the committee wants the big name teams in. So, look, if another team has a clearly better resume, I think the committee will do the right thing. But sometimes it's subconscious. Do you know what I mean? And where when you see two resumes and they're essentially equal, but then you put Alabama on one, and just for the sake of argument, you put, I don't know, Miami on the other one. As much as Miami has plenty of cachet, who's the recent team that has won a lot more natties? It's Alabama. Who is the team that's going to draw more eyeballs? It's Alabama. I'm not making the case for the Crimson Tide. I'm just saying that bias, even if it's subconscious, does matter. Recent success does matter. Who do fans want to see in? Probably Alabama. I think it's a better storyline. So I don't know what's driving the line movement, but am I going to be stunned if Alabama somehow slips into that final spot?
No, I'm not either. And I think the committee will use whatever ammo and whatever angle that it wants and kind of mold it to fit whatever team that they want. And I do think, after looking at some things for Alabama, because I think the bottom line is who has the best quality win. And if Georgia wins the SEC championship game, Alabama has a win over Georgia. And so I think that that's going to be the difference maker, because the quality win for Miami, like, what is it? We were just talking about it. Is it Louisville? A game that was, very much back and forth, because it feels like just about half the wins for Miami playing in a weak ACC conference have been close games. They've been absolute shootouts, and Miami's gotten lucky in a lot of those. And so I feel like the resume is not great for Miami. And then I was thinking, okay, so can we narrow it down to 3-loss SEC teams and say Alabama is the best of the bunch? I'm starting to think it's probably the case, because again, if Georgia wins the SEC championship, they're going to have the best quality win. Because I was looking at South Carolina, and they don't have the quality win like that Georgia one. They have a lot of really good wins over ranked opponents, but they don't have that top tier one. Maybe their best one is Clemson that they just had, but also Alabama beat South Carolina head to head. So can you really put South Carolina ahead of Alabama? I don't think so.
I don't think so. I don't know. But here's the thing. This is when you look at how losses took place, and this is when, this is why James Franklin was going off and he was saying point differential matters now in a big way. Like, the committee's going to look at all sorts of different things, and South Carolina's losses have been really close. Mm-hmm. Like, they really haven't been blown out by anybody. So if you look on the other side, Alabama scored 3 points against Oklahoma, a bad Oklahoma team. That's a bad loss. So while Alabama may have an advantage in one area, on the flip side, if you look at their losses, South Carolina has much better losses where they look much more competitive and were in those games, as opposed to that loss to Oklahoma, for example, where the Crimson Tide were not in that game. So that's something you have to factor in as well. The quality of the losses and the margin of loss will be something they take into account. A lot of factors, but that will be one of them.
Yeah, I think the bottom line is, if they have any ammo at all and any reasoning to back Alabama, they're going to go with Alabama. Mm-hmm. And I think that's kind of the death warrant for South Carolina in this case. They have a good case, but I think the committee is going to give the extra gentle nudge to Alabama. It should be interesting to follow. All right, so let's take a look at the NFL slate. And let's start on Thursday night, where we actually have a good game. Packers-Lions, this one in Detroit. The Lions laying 3.5 points. Total this one a very healthy 51.5 points. Jenks, I have been very afraid to fade the Lions or go against them in any way, but they played down to the wire against another divisional foe in the Bears. Do you think that the Packers can keep this one close?
Yeah, I really do. I wonder, and I hate saying this because the Lions are so lovable. People love the Lions. I like the Lions, but they just keep winning and winning and winning, and at some point, the market gets a little too high on a team, and I think this might be that spot for the Lions. Mm-hmm. Not that they can't win, but 3.5 in a division game against a very good Packers game, man, this could be a game where you get killed by the hook. I would actually lean Green Bay. I don't really have a lot of interest in betting on this game, and I do think it's going to be a great game. I'm so glad we get this bad boy on Thursday Night Football. But, man, when you have a Packers team that is right in the thick of a division race and they're getting that extra half point, this is one of those games where I like Detroit at 3, but I like the Packers at 3.5.
Yeah, I think if the Lions play their best brand of football, they can certainly win this game easily. But I also think that if the Packers play their best brand of football, they can keep it close as well. So a lot of it, I feel like, will be execution. And we see this in divisional games all the time. It feels like the underdog usually has the upper hand. Maybe they don't win the game, but it feels like these games always play closer, especially this time of year when the injuries are starting to mount and it feels like, your true grit is being tested. So a little tease to what next segment is going to be. This is going to be one of my teaser legs. I'm going to go with the Packers. Getting 9.5 is one of my teaser options. Stay tuned if you want to hear my full teaser card. All right, looking at the rest of the slate. Let's start on Sunday. We have some other divisional matchups. We have the Jags and my Titans, not a game that the rest of you will probably be watching. We have the Jets, who I feel like are irrelevant at this point, playing against the Dolphins. Will you be full fading the Jets for the rest of the season, Jenks? Like, it feels like we're starting to get into the territory of, like, give-up season for some of these teams. Do you put the Jets in that category?
Yeah. Jets are a mess, and I'm kind of enjoying it, I have to say. I have to say that after hearing Aaron Rodgers again and again and again on Pat McAfee, he just goes on and on and on with his conspiracy theories and all this nonsense, I'm like, man, you should focus on football. And guess what? It has not worked out. Did you see after that loss to the Seahawks on Sunday that Jeff Ulbrich would not commit to Aaron Rodgers as his quarterback? Think about that for a second. This was supposed to be the year after that Achilles injury that he comes back. Jets are right there in the mix for a Super Bowl. And they asked the head coach about the status of Aaron Rodgers if he's your quarterback. And the coach says, for now. Think about that for a second. That's remarkable. And I believe he threw for less than 300 yards for like the third or fourth straight game, something like that. The Jets are 3-10-1 against the number in their last 14. The Aaron Rodgers experiment with the Jets has been an abject failure from start to finish. It just has not worked out. And he threw that pick six, that awful pick six on Sunday as well. He's just not the same quarterback. He just looks washed to me. And I would not be surprised if he retires after this season. It just looks like he's kind of hit the wall. And Tom Brady sort of set the bar so high where now we assume every single quarterback can play into his 40s. Tom Brady was the anomaly. Aaron Rodgers is the norm. When you get to a certain age, you get injured, you're not the same, you slow down a little bit. He's had an amazing career, but man, I would not trust the Jets at all. And they have to go down and face the Dolphins in Miami. Dolphins are still trying to make their way into the postseason. Jets are just ready to wrap things up and call it a year. So, yeah, I would fade the Jets all the way to the bank.
Yeah, and I feel like it's not even the fact that Aaron Rodgers is, like, simply bad at football. He's also, I feel like, I don't want to say torn apart the locker room, but, like, the clubhouse chemistry has not been there. And I understand anytime you're losing that's kind of how it's going to be. But it just feels like any way you slice it. Like if Aaron Rodgers is winning you football games, you put up with the headaches. But now, looking in retrospect at that trip that he took to Egypt at the start of the year, you're starting to think, maybe we shouldn't have let him do whatever he wants during minicamp. So it does feel like a failure of a season. And, oh, by the way, happy belated birthday, Aaron Rodgers. Yesterday was his 41st birthday. Jenks, the Jets sent out a happy birthday graphic for Aaron Rodgers.
Right.
The replies went just about how you would think.
Happy birthday, Aaron. Because you're older now, we're going to give you a break and put you on the bench this Sunday. Just take it easy for a while. You do you for a while. You know what? That's what you should do. Oh, I'm sure the replies were just absolutely brutal. God, what a disaster it's been. Even though, I have to say, I have enjoyed it.
Right. The craziest part is I didn't even hear about some of these headlines until like yesterday. The Jets have become so bad that they've become irrelevant. Like, isn't that the worst case scenario?
Yes.
To where you've gotten so bad that you're in the number one media market in the country and still people aren't hearing about you. It's probably a good thing because we shouldn't be hearing about teams this bad. All right, other games on the slate. So it looks like the morning slate, or excuse me, like the noon, 1 o'clock window, not a ton of great games. Like maybe you could convince me that there's something to play for the Vikings and the Falcons. Like obviously the Vikings have been cruising. A team that is sitting at 10-2 against basically all odds. A team that was big plus money to be in the playoffs. So now they go against Kirk Cousins, who is fresh off a very turnover-prone game in his last one. And Minnesota is laying 5 here. Jenks, do you trust the Vikings at home to cover this number?
I actually don't. Minnesota is a team that I need to look it up because we're just spitballing here. But Minnesota is one of those teams that they win, but they don't necessarily win convincingly. They just kind of figure it out. Like they needed a touchdown with under 2 minutes to play from Sam Darnold to win last week against the Cardinals. They needed their defense to hold there at the end. But I think Minnesota is the most fascinating case in the National Football League right now. They are 10-2. And nobody is talking about the Vikings. And I really think it's because of Sam Darnold. I think everyone thinks, dude, it's Sam Darnold. Dude, it's Sam Darnold. We're 12 games into the season. Sam Darnold is playing great football. This Vikings defense is very good. I don't know if they're good enough to blow everyone out, but at some point you have to push aside this past narrative that Sam Darnold is not a good NFL quarterback and accept the fact that, you know what? This year, with this team, he is. This team is 10-2, and we're acting like they're around the 500 mark. So I don't know if they cover this number, but I do think the Vikings are a team it's time to at least start paying attention to and maybe take a little bit more seriously than we've taken them throughout the season.
Yeah, I think something kind of has to give in this game because you're right about the angle with Minnesota. They have been unable to blow out some of these bad teams. Like looking back to, they've had the Colts, the Jags, and the Titans, a steady diet of the AFC South. And most of these games were pretty much games until the fourth quarter. Beat Indianapolis 21-13, Jacksonville 12-7, Tennessee 23-13. You mentioned, the close games in the last 2 weeks against Arizona and the Bears. So maybe this number is a touch too high, sitting at 5, but you look at the Falcons, they've lost and failed to cover in 3 straight games, and they've been terrible as underdogs. I'm looking at, the games in which they're getting points. They haven't covered a single number. In their last 3 games as dogs, since September 22nd, they've been favored in a lot of these games. They've lost all of those outright and have failed to cover the number in every single one of them. So not a great spot for Atlanta as underdogs. Coming up next, time to look at the NFL slate through a different lens. I'll be talking about my teaser for the weekend in the NFL, and you tell me who ruins my teaser next on the Daily Tip.
Hey, this is Brad Evans. Join me on BetMGM tonight alongside Ryan Horvat, weekdays 7-11 Eastern only on the BetQL network. Bring the noise!
on the BetQL network, presented by BetMGM. The sportsbook born in Vegas. Download the app today. Please gamble responsibly.
All right, welcome back. Thanks for tuning in. It is a Tuesday, and a teaser Tuesday at that. In a few minutes, we'll lay out my favorite teaser options for this week in the NFL. And I will say, last week's plus 160 teaser made it to the window. So I'm going to pat myself on the back for that. It was one of the few wins that I had this week. One of the only wins. So we will celebrate that. All right. So, Jenks, I saw this over the weekend. Tyreek Hill is a dad once again, as his wife gave birth to a healthy baby girl, which obviously is great news. But I watched the video on Instagram that they kind of chronicled the birth. I feel like they showed way too much. Like, I want to see the baby. The baby is very cute. But, like, some of the, like, mashups that they posted in this, like, you could see her, like, legs sprawled. They put, like, a little sunflower over the baby's, like, private parts during one section.
Okay.
I feel like the line has been blurred about how much we should actually be sharing of some of these moments, because I understand, like, this is a huge moment for anybody giving birth to a child.
Sure.
But I feel like this should not be for public consumption. Like, some of these stills are a little too graphic for my taste. Like, you can keep them in the family album, you know, video, but, like, I didn't need to see this. Like, I'm a mom. I understand the process. Some of it's, like, not the most picturesque, but still, like, did we need to see this? Do you ever feel like this when people post videos? You're like, this is fine, but, like, you could have, you know, taken it back, like, one small step backwards.
I believe that intimacy is something that is being lost in the sharing of everything. And I understand that it is exciting to share things and that it is important to share things because there are family members, there are friends who don't get to see everything because of proximity, whatever it may be. But not everything needs to be shared on a regular basis. It just doesn't. Not everyone needs to share everything, because then you lose some of these private, really personal, special moments by broadcasting them to everyone. And it was like you were saying, if you want to keep it to yourself, that's great. But whether it's, and this is me, I'm old school, whether it's an engagement, a birth, and there are exceptions to every rule, you can share some things, but I think that the real intimacy and the real specialness is about having this moment to yourselves, right? And again, you can say, okay, here's what happened after the fact, but there's certain things that I think mean more, at least in my view, if you just keep them between yourself, your wife, your husband, your partner, your children, whomever, and you say, yeah, we can share some of this, but this moment right here, this is for us and no one else. And I think it means more, because I think a lot of people, unfortunately, they're more excited about sharing the moment than experiencing the moment. So not only do you take away that intimacy, ultimately you take it away from yourself because you're really doing it for the broadcasting and for the feedback that you're going to get and that rush that you're going to get, that dopamine hit you're going to get from people responding and commenting, than you are from actually just absorbing what just happened.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. Like, maybe it's not the case for giving birth. Like, I feel like you're so in the moment, and obviously somebody else was filming this, but, like, this was the front page of TMZ. So, like, you were broadcasting this very private moment with the entire world. So I think, obviously, it's different if you're, like, a celebrity or somebody who is famous. Because, like, it's one thing if you put it on your Facebook and you have, like, you know, 15 people who comment. That's fine. These are probably the people that you want to see this moment. But I don't know. I think it would be different. I think I would be posting much different things if I was that famous. But that's just me. All right. So let's get onto the NFL slate and take a look at some of the best teaser leg options, because that's what I promised you guys. And maybe that's the way I should be playing the NFL slate this weekend, because that's what's been working for me. So I have 4 options this week. Normally I do 3 and you tell me who ruins the teaser. This week, I'm going to do 4 teaser leg options, and Jenks, you're going to kick one out for me.
Okay.
So let's go to the teaser options, and let's play Who Ruins My Teaser?
Chelsea is such a teaser.
All right, so let's take a look at this week's options. I feel like we have several good ones, and that's why I'm going to go with 4 legs on this one. And you tell me who gets kicked out of the teaser as opposed to who ruins my teaser. And hell, somebody could also ruin the teaser as well. But we're going to start with a divisional dog against a team that has not been covering numbers and has not been blowing out their opponents. The team that I'm talking about is the Kansas City Chiefs. So this week, it's the Chargers who visit the Chiefs. The Chargers are getting 4 points against the mighty Chiefs. If you put them in a teaser, they're now getting 10 points. I feel like this has to be included. The way that the Chiefs have been winning games with voodoo magic and, late calls that bail them out, I feel like this has to go in. And plus, the Chargers usually play the Chiefs closely, even when they've had, the worst coaching options and the team hasn't been good. So now that they have a viable option at head coach and they're actually a good team, I'm going to go Chargers plus 10. Next up, we're going to do a full fade of the New York Jets. So they're playing the Dolphins on the road. Dolphins 6.5-point favorites. You put them in a teaser. The Dolphins only have to win by a point. Yes, give me that. Next up, we're going to go to another divisional dog here. Seahawks. They're getting 3 points on the road at the Cardinals. So in a teaser leg, this is plus 9. Now, this one almost got kicked out, from the get-go, but I feel like there's some really good ammo behind this quietly. I know the Seahawks and the Cardinals is not the marquee matchup that people probably think, but these are the 2 teams vying for the NFC West. Did you know that the Seahawks right now are leading the NFC West? I didn't even know that. So now I do. This is a massive game. So the Seahawks getting points, and they've beaten the Cardinals 6 straight times. The road team in this division rivalry has covered in 7 of the last 8. So if you give me the Seahawks plus 9, I think that's a really good option. And then finally, the last divisional dog that I think maybe this is the one that I kick out, but I like it. The Packers getting 9.5 on the road at the Lions. This is the Thursday night game. I kind of want to kick it out because I don't like having teaser legs on Thursday because you can lose it before the weekend even starts. But the normal line in this one is 3.5. I do feel like the Lions, if they play really well, there's a chance they beat the Packers by 10 points. So, Jenks, I'm kind of leaning towards kicking the Packers out. So, of the Chargers, the Dolphins, the Seahawks, and the Packers, who gets kicked out of my teaser?
Oh, man. I think it might be. You know what, though? I'm actually going to switch it up. I think it might be the Chargers. Maybe it's the Chargers. Because here's the thing. Last week, they got a win, but it was not easy. Their offense just could do nothing. And now J.K. Dobbins is, I don't know if he's out for the season. He's on IR. So he was their best threat at running back. He's out. So at least recently, overall, the Chargers can score points, but they can also just kind of go in a shell and rely on their defense. And I hate saying do, but man, there is a possibility that everything comes together for the Chiefs because the talent is all there and they suddenly just go off and win a game by a couple touchdowns. As many times as they've skated by this season, and this game is at Arrowhead, then I think there's a possibility they could end up not blowing out the Chargers, but maybe covering that big number. Although I will say that going with the Lions is not a bad sabotage pick as well. Those are the 2 that stand out to me.
Yeah, I do think there is an angle on that Chargers game. I feel like Justin Herbert has to have a big game because the Chiefs are already really good against the run, 3rd best statistically speaking in the NFL. And we see the issues with the run game with the Chargers. So I feel like it falls on the shoulders of Justin Herbert. But, hey, he's a good quarterback. So I think maybe he can keep it close. I think that game goes one of 2 directions. Either we finally see a Chiefs blowout where they win a game big, or they finally lose a game. Don't you feel like that's kind of the 2 scenarios that Kansas City is careening towards?
Yes. I don't feel like there's a big gray area with them. The Chiefs I feel like with the Chiefs, it's here's what's going to happen. We're going to win big or we're just going to skate by. There's no gray area with these guys. And so I keep wondering. I will also say maybe I'm giving Kansas City too much credit. It's all there on paper. but they haven't really blown anyone out, at least for the majority of the season. So I like the Chargers. I really like the under in this game, by the way, in a big way, because you're talking about two very good defenses. I think what I worry about in this game is the Chargers scoring on the Chiefs or putting up enough points against the Chiefs, because the one thing, as I always say, which is overlooked when you talk about Kansas City, is how good their defense is. And so for a Chargers team that took a little bit of a step back last week, I worry, can they keep up with Kansas City? But then again, the Chargers defense is really good. So again, I like it. I'm just making a contrarian argument for the sake of it.
Yeah, it feels like the two legs that we're kind of nervous about, it's fading two of the best teams in football. Is it not? So, like, you either have to fade the Chiefs in some regard, or you have to fade the Lions. And I will say, if there's a team that, like, at least has a resume for blowing out teams, it's probably the Lions.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's a primetime game. It's a division rival. At some point, like, one of these trends has to end. One of these trends being the Chiefs are going to stop, playing these really close games, or the Lions are going to stop playing in these blowout games. And I guess we already saw that last week. Same scenario, division rival. So I don't know. What about the Seahawks or the Dolphins? Do you have any complaints there?
Nah. Also, if you look at, I wrote this down somewhere, but if you look at the Cardinals at home against the number with Kyler Murray at quarterback, they've been very, very, very mediocre. 3-7 against the number in their last 10 games as a home favorite. So, yeah, I love the Seahawks. I think the Seahawks are a little underrated. I love the Seahawks before the season. Didn't expect them to be in this position where they are. But, yeah, I love that completely.
Yeah, I can't believe, like, I do this for a living, and I didn't even know the Seahawks were leading the NFC West. I thought it was the Cardinals, but I suppose after that loss to Minnesota last week, the Seahawks are now the head team in the NFC West. Paging the 49ers, what are you guys doing? Feels like the Niners season is pretty much over. We shall see. All right, coming up next, it's hour 3 on deck of the Daily Tip, and we'll continue peeking through the NFL slate to try to find some early winners next on the Daily Tip.
Chelsea and Jenks will be right back on the Daily Tip on the BetQL Network, presented by BetMGM on the Sportsbook born in Vegas. Download the app today. Please gamble responsibly.
Time for the Daily Tip
This is like Disneyland for adults.
If I wanted to have fun, I was going to go to Disneyland with my kids.
with Michael Jenkins.
And you can say I'm a homer. I don't care. Sark has built this program like Nick Saban built Alabama. This is a really deep roster. This is a national championship roster.
And Chelsea Messenger.
Let's try to beat the rest of the network at being degenerates, because maybe, just maybe, we can win in that regard.
I do like the idea of a parlor.
Hey, Dad, don't forget about me, the dogster.
Presented by BetMGM. The sportsbook born in Vegas. Download the app today. Please gamble responsibly.
If anyone can be a degenerate, it can be us.
It is great to have you with us on a Tuesday. The Daily Tip from BetQL, presented by BetMGM. Coming up in our final hour, the playoffs are approaching in the National Football League. We will look at the early numbers for Week 14, find out if anything is standing out to us, including the Chiefs trying to improve to 12-1 on the season. Then at 8:20, it is a Tuesday. You know what that means. PJ Glasser will be along. We will chat with the host of BetQL, Send It In, find out the early games that he is on. And as usual, we will chat with the Chalk Donkey and bring you our best bets at 8:40. So last week I was telling this really boring story. Let me continue with it. I was complaining about trying to find some jeans that fit. So these jeans I have on right now, they came in yesterday. And I'm like, okay, I think they fit pretty well. Maybe they need to be let out in the waist a little bit. I don't know. Catherine's like, they're fine. I'm like, I don't know. Maybe I'm just being weird about my body or whatever. She's like, I think they look good. I'm like, I don't know. But then I looked, and I did not realize this at the time because I got a good deal on them. Final sale. So that means these bad boys aren't going anywhere. I got to lose some weight or add some stretchy material or just wear them out. I think denim stretches a little bit, right?
Yeah, I think it's one of those things where, like, if you wear them one time and then maybe you don't wash them, like, don't they wear out a little bit? So maybe that's the thing. But you're right. If you can't return them, maybe you learn to love them, or you just be like me and shove them to the back of the closet. Because here is my bad habit. I will buy things and I don't like them, and I'm like, I'll return this later. It's been 2 years. Still haven't returned the item. I am so lazy in that regard. Like, I'm just not a returner. Like, if I get something, like, it's coming home with me. I'm going to find a way to implement it into my closet, even if it's like the back of the closet. And I'm just like, well, maybe someday.
I'm just the opposite. I got a system down where I have my little printer. I pull it out. I print out the return slip immediately. And then when I leave work, there's a UPS store like a block and a half from here. So when I leave, before I hit the metro, it's like just walk by, drop it off, out of here. But I have to stop shopping. I don't know why I've been on a shopping kick lately. Catherine and I, we were both having drinks, stuffed with turkey, been watching football all day, and we were both on our phones, and she's like, what do you think about this dress? I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool. She's like, I think I get it. I'm like, okay, sure. So then I've had the same coat forever, and I needed good coats, but coats are expensive. You know what I mean? So I found one I really like, and I was like, oh, wow, this is like 50% off. And you know how it is. Had a few drinks, and, you know, you're caring less about spending money. But it's 50% off. And Catherine's like, just get it. You deserve it. I was like, okay. Boom. Bought it. Got it. Then yesterday, I bought like a Texas hoodie. And finally, because it was Cyber Monday, you know what I mean? Had to take advantage of that. But now, that small little pocket of trying to save some money and get some extra things, that has now come to an end. I'm tying a bow on that.
I feel like you and Catherine are like two of the same kind.
Yes.
Like, if one of you wants to do something, the other one's just like, yeah, just go ahead and do it. And you're like, yeah, I am going to do it. But at least a coat, I feel like you can justify, because these are usually, if they're good quality, you can wear them for a long time.
Oh, yeah.
And it has to go with like every outfit. So I do think if you're going to splurge on like one thing, it needs to be something you can wear like a lot. Either like good pants to go with like a lot of outfits, good shoes, you know, you can wear a bunch of times, or a coat that's going to be like your staple when it comes to the colder months.
Yeah, the coat I have right now, it's a nice coat, but it's also like 7 or 8 years old. So it's maybe time to replace that bad boy. So I got that and a really tight tank top. That way I can wear the tank top to show off the body, and then the overcoat over that. I like to mix it up, you know? So
the jersey combo.
Oh, the old jersey overcoat combo. It's a classic. So Finally, I to my bank account, like, Michael, stop. We are stopping today. So these jeans are staying put, and the coat's coming in, and then it's done, and it's back to spending money on the NFL. And we can do it right now, Week 14 at BetMGM, Chelsea. So where do we begin? Sound like the Dark Knight. Where do we begin? How about, I'll throw a game out there, Bills at Rams. Now, here's Buffalo, 10-2 on a winning streak. They're going all the way out to L.A. They're laying 4. They're minus 200 on the money line. Los Angeles, plus 165. Total is 48 and a hook. Doesn't this, Bills going out west, doesn't it feel like maybe the Rams keep it within 4? We're just kind of talking through it, but Buffalo's playing great ball.
I feel like the square in me is like, Chelsea, have you seen the Bills lately? You want to fade that team? You want to fade Josh Allen and that offense? And now they get to play indoors, or at least at a much better climate, that they have been playing in. I understand that it's a team that can play in the snow, but if you look at their offense, like, it's a team that also can do well when it's, passing weather, because obviously Josh Allen can really sling it. I think the big question in this one is, how many chances do I give the Rams against good teams? Because I think the Rams are a really easy sell, because you look at the offense, you look at Matt Stafford, you look at Sean McVay, and you look at the receiving options with Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp, and you say, okay, give me those guys, and you're giving me a chance against just about anybody in the NFL. Isn't this the running joke on the network? Is that, like, You Better You Bet, like, loves the Rams, and they're always, like, advocating for them. And then, like, the show after us, BetQL Daily, is the exact opposite, to where they're saying, look at the film. The Rams are not a good team. In some of these similar spots where the Rams had played in these big games, like, look at that game against the Eagles. The Rams playing at home. I think they were getting, like, a similar number here. It was a really easy sell. Rams playing at home. Matt Stafford can sling it. But they lost that game 37-20. So I think against, like, lesser competition, you can make a good case for the Rams, but I'm starting to fall out of favor with the Ramily. I don't think I can do it anymore.
Yeah, we got left out on an island. And we're having this big competition.
We're not included.
We're not included. We're all alone.
Look, we tried to set up a contest with all the other shows on the network.
Yeah.
I was going to be in charge. I was like, all you guys got to do is give me your picks every week. I'll run it. I'll be in charge of it. No. They wanted
They didn't want that smoke.
Nothing.
They didn't want that smoke.
They're scared.
Nothing to do with us.
Oh, yeah. Did you see how we did last week? You don't want that smoke.
Yeah. Have you seen our donkster? Like, what other show has an inflatable donkey, at their disposal? None of you guys. So we get it.
I vote that Sammy P inflate some sort of animal and he come up with a voice. That's what I think. I'd love to see that. Sometimes he'll try to do the doctor. I'm like, you know what? You're getting there. It could be, what sort of animal should they have? I don't know.
They need like a weird one, like an armadillo or something. Like the Christmas armadillo. Or like, I don't know. What's another whimsical animal? Or you could do the polar opposite and the nemesis, politically speaking, of the donkey is the elephant.
Oh, that's true. That's true. Could do that as well. My wheels are churning. I'm trying to think of something betting. It doesn't have to be betting related. What's the donkey have to do with betting?
It does, because the chalk donkey. Because you call somebody a chalk donkey if they're laying big numbers. So, like, what are the other animals that we associate with betting? Like, the only one I can think of is, like, the max whale plays. So maybe Sammy P can do something with a whale. Like a big beluga whale. It's like, my big whale play of the afternoon.
the wagering whale. It's been another losing streak for me. I was a part of the Ramily, but I got kicked out. I miss Joe. Oh, he was always so nice to me. Not Sammy P, though. I didn't hit my match. It's the wagering whale.
I think I have to buy something now.
Emmy. Jinx is getting it in me.
Let's do that's the wager. Sammy P, there you go. The wagering whale. He's always sad about something. It's always a loss, and even when he wins, he's still upset. Could be anything. See, right there.
Yeah.
We're laying it out for you. Oh, that was good.
Too easy.
Good call,
Right?
Chelsea.
God, we're amazing.
We're so great. Look at us. Everything's coming up us. Everything's coming up us. Here's one for you. Nothing's coming up Bears. Nothing's coming up Bears. They're in San Francisco. Nothing's coming up Niners either. Look at this game. San Francisco, out west, Levi's Stadium. Talking about jeans earlier. Perfect. San Francisco laying 5.5. San Francisco's minus 225 on the money line. The Bears plus 185. Total is 44 and a hook. Are you going to lay 5.5 points with the San Francisco 49ers against the lowly Chicago Bears? Man, two teams that have really disappointed.
Yeah, speaking of animals, how about we discuss the dead cat bounce? Isn't that a thing in betting where you see a head coach get fired and then the next week a team actually does better? Like, do we think that applies here to the Bears? Like, yes. I feel like if Matt Eberflus is not running the ship, there is a chance that maybe this team is better. But we also discussed this. Like, some it falls on Caleb Williams. Like, his inability to run a play under 30 seconds. Like, I was watching the Browns game last night. I said to myself, okay, let's see if Jameis Winston and the 3-8 Browns can execute better with 30 seconds left in the half than the Chicago Bears and the number 1 overall pick. You know what the answer was? Yes, Jameis Winston pulled that off much better. He actually scored a touchdown and got 3 plays off. So I think Bill is right. Caleb Williams deserves some blame for that.
He does. There's no question. Here's the thing. It was like he deserves the initial blame, but the overall blame goes to Matt Eberflus because at the end he should just been like, all right, my rookie quarterback's not handling this right, so timeout. But you know what? I think you're right about I would take the Bears here. Oh, God, did I just say that live on the radio? I would take the Bears. San Francisco is so banged up again. Christian McCaffrey out for the season. They're all banged up. And here's the thing about the Bears, and I said this earlier, but I read this article. It was from Diana Rossini in The Athletic, and it was sort of a deep dive on how after the Commanders hit that Hail Mary against the Bears, like Matt Eberflus really started to lose the team and just lost them completely over the next couple of games. And also, when you look at Caleb Williams, he was trying to learn a system that is really difficult for any quarterback to learn. So then they started simplifying reads just a little bit, switching things up to let him sort of grow into the offense. And look, he looked good last week in the fourth quarter. I know he made that error at the end, okay? That was a rookie mistake. You took way too long. But up until that point, especially late in the game, he was throwing some dimes. He looked a lot better. So if he can progress somewhat this week against the Niners team that laying 5.5. I just don't think San Francisco should be laying 5.5 here. I feel like even with San Francisco's struggles, the eye test, or you just look down, not the eye test of watching the teams, but you look Bears, Niners, you're like, oh, Niners. I think the Bears get the dead coach bounce, the dead cat bounce. Caleb Williams, dead coach. Look at that coach just died. We're going to play a whole lot better this week. Poor Matt Eberflus. Look at him. Nope, he's dead. And 5.5 is too many. I'm not saying I will bet it, but if I'm leaning one way, believe it or not, I will lean Chicago.
Well, it should be noted the line is 4.
Is it 4 now?
Still, the point is noted. Yes. Bears getting 4 on the road here at the Niners. I think maybe some of this has to do with the injury report from the Niners. So maybe this is one that you wait and see. Because wasn't this kind of the handicap on the Niners last week is, okay, let's see who's actually going to play. And I think some of us were kind of suckered into saying, okay, maybe if the Niners are healthy, they can keep it close with the Bills. That was also before the weather report. But Trent Williams didn't play. Obviously, Christian McCaffrey is not going to be playing, it feels like, for the foreseeable future. But Trent Williams is a big one. At least they did get Brock Purdy back for that game. Didn't seem to matter. So I don't know when it comes to the Niners. Like, maybe they look good if Trent Williams is back, but it just feels like a team you can't really trust right now. But you look at the Bears, and is this a team you want to trust in like a one-score game? Not really. So I don't know. I feel like this is a no bet for me.
I didn't answer on purpose. I was like, the answer is no. No, you cannot. Quick play, Chelsea. We have 60 seconds before the break. Monday Night Football, Bengals, Cowboys. Cincy laying 5.5. You know, lay with the Bengals in Dallas.
Ooh, no, this feels like an over game. 49.5 with this Bengals defense. If the Cowboys, have any chance of scoring points, it's against the Bengals, who cannot stop a single soul. This team has scored 99 points over their last 3 games. They won 0 of them. So I think this is an over game. Don't play the spread.
Let's go to break by talking to the wagering whale.
Coming up next, the last time EJ Glasser was on the show, he bet Georgia to beat Texas, but I don't know if that's going to happen again. I picked Texas and I was wrong. That's next on the Daily Tip from BetQL, presented by BetMGM.
Hey, it's Sammy P. Join me and Joe Ostrowski on BetQL Daily, weekday mornings at 9 Eastern, where we look to give you the insider edge and insights to help you make...
Let's get back to the Daily Tip with Chelsea Messenger and Michael Jenkins on the BetQL Network, presented by BetMGM. The sportsbook born in Vegas. Download the app today. Please gamble responsibly.
Welcome back to the show. The Daily Tip from BetQL. Presented by BetMGM. Double D, I know you got that drop for me. Like doing a shot at the club. You just close your eyes. Yeah. Welcome back to the Daily Tip for BetQL, presented by BetMGM. It's Chelsea, I'm Jenks. Coming up, it is championship week in college football. You got to find out who PJ Glasser is betting. We will chat with the host of BetQL. Send it in. Chelsea, there's got to be a character somewhere inside you. That's what I think. I think we should develop one. Yeah!
I've already supplied you a character.
Oh, that's
Max
true.
Whale. Max Whale, the wagering whale. Built from, the term Max Whale, because the chalk donkey, I know that maybe you guys don't know the lore, but somebody who is a chalk donkey is somebody who lays big numbers and lays a lot of juice with the favorite. So that's where the dogster came from. If any of you were wondering, Jenks, we need like a wiki fandom page for our show so that people who are just tuning in kind of know what we do. Because obviously we're a very serious show. So we have an inflatable donkey that we have used kind of as the mascot for BetQL, which is the company that pays us. So this was a bold move, us openly mocking the company that employs us. But hey, we're still here, baby. So we did something right.
As Dylan says, we have a deep lore on this show. This show's about lore, a deep lore.
It's like Game of Thrones.
Yeah, it really is. It really is. You could just do a deep dive into the Daily Tip. You know what? We got to do a deep dive into a massive week in college football. Now, his Crimson Tide got to win in the Iron Bowl. Well, let's find out what else is on PG Glasser's mind.
Giving out his plays.
But there's a lot of airspace to cover for Milroe. Still looking, firing, near corner. It's caught! Touchdown, Alabama! Isaiah Bond on a 4th and a mile.
Props.
Jackson, end zone, Blakely for the touchdown. Jackson keeps Stanley in front of him. Touchdown, Lamar.
Parlays for today.
Parlay. That's the one. Parlay. Parlay.
It's PJ Glasser.
Here we go. We bring him in every Tuesday for his expertise. He is the host of Send It In, weekdays at 1 o'clock on the BetQL Network, co-host of Tailgate Kickoff Saturday mornings from 9 to 10 in the East, and co-host of Inside the Betting Lines from 1 to 5 in the East. PJ, great to see you. I'm excited to talk to you because I always love hearing what you have to say when these numbers come out and it's early in the week. And this Mountain West Championship is pretty fascinating because Boise State has a ton to gain if they win and a ton to lose if they don't, more so than other teams playing this week. So what's going to happen between UNLV and the Boise State Broncos?
Yeah, guys, this is going to be a good one on Friday night, and it's one of those conference championship games that's played on campus, right? Like all these Power 4 are obviously at NFL stadiums, they're neutral sites. This one's going to be at Boise on the blue turf. So, you see a spread like that, and pretty much if these two teams were playing on a neutral, it'd be close to a pick-em. And I think that would surprise a lot of people because of the season that Boise's having, the season that Ashton Genty's having, obviously. And like you said, Jenks, I mean, Boise's got a ton to lose. Not only if they lose this game are they going to be out of the playoff, but also they'll miss their opportunity to likely get one of those top 4 seeds and get a bye into the quarterfinals. So just a huge game for them. I kind of think this is a de facto playoff game, guys. I think the winner of this game is going to the playoff. And that's why UNLV is only a 4-point dog, because they're really good and they're having a great season and their defense is solid. These two teams played earlier this season. UNLV did as good a job as any team at kind of containing Genty, and I think they're going to do the same thing. So it's going to be one of those games that comes right down to the wire. Boise really hasn't been that impressive the last 4 or 5 weeks. They've kind of just been skating by. And if they play the kind of game that they've been playing here as of late, they're going to get beat. So it's going to be close. These Mountain West title games throughout the years have normally been really tight, especially the ones that Boise has been involved in. I think this one's going to be another close game. I don't know if Boise loses outright, but I'll certainly take the points with UNLV. This game will be a field goal. I like the Rebels.
Yeah, the first installment was a good one as well. Boise State winning that one 29-24. All right, let's go to where it just means more. The SEC championship game, the big one of the weekend for a lot of people around here. Cough, cough, Jenks, Georgia and Texas squaring off. How does this one go, PJ?
Yeah, guys, nobody on this show will be interested in this game, that's for sure. It's going to be good, right? We get a rematch of the game earlier on in the year in Austin, and as you guys know, we were picking that game earlier in the season. I like Georgia, and the reason being you don't get Georgia very often as underdogs, and when Kirby Smart gets to tell his team for a week that nobody thinks they're any good and that they're an underdog to a team that they beat in their house, I kind of like Georgia in that game, right? I think the case for Texas this week, a lot of people will be saying it's tough to beat a team 2 times. Obviously, recency bias. Texas just had the great win in College Station. Georgia should have lost to Georgia Tech in that crazy 8 overtime game. I just think this is one of those games, guys, where it's a bad matchup for Texas. Like, that game where those two teams played didn't look like it was a fluke to me. Georgia dominated that thing from the start, and it really wasn't all that close. If you don't have a quarterback that's all that mobile against Georgia and can create and make plays like a Haynes King did for Georgia Tech, like a Jalen Milroe did for Bama, I think it's tough to move the ball. And Texas's offense, for all the playmakers that they have on that side of the ball, they have really not been all that great the last 4 or 5 weeks. Ewers is not healthy, and I think that's hurting them on that side of the ball. So kind of like an under in this game too, just because of how good Texas's defense has been. I think they'll continue to be. I think Georgia will limit Texas's offense as well. So I like the under, and I like Georgia to get another win over Texas. I would take Georgia outright, plus 120.
I mean, I want to. Chelsea wants me to rebut this.
Fight.
Double T. Here's the thing. I don't necessarily disagree with PJ. The only thing I would say is this: is that if we're talking about game script, the one thing that Texas, and I keep hammering this home, is that in that first game, Texas just kept giving away the ball to Georgia on super short fields. And so it could happen again because the Georgia defense is that dominant, but it was much more extraneous, or you rarely see just like turnover where a team has to drive 25, 30 yards to score. And Texas did that again and again and again. I've always said with Texas, if Texas can get off to a good start, right, and just even if Quinn Ewers doesn't lose his mind, to me, that's the key. If Quinn Ewers plays well in the first 10 minutes of the game, Texas has a real shot. He settles down, and then you got to drive the length of the field on the Texas defense. And as we know, Carson Beck is mistake prone. So I think that if Texas can do that, settle in early, then they absolutely have a chance to win the game. I will also say, to PJ's credit, Georgia's Georgia. And you're right, Kirby Smart is going to hammer home how in the hell are we dogs in this game. As soon as we beat A&M, I started looking for lines, and I thought, okay, Georgia's the favorite here. When I saw Texas as a favorite, I thought, you got to be kidding, because this is essentially an enemy territory. But Texas is better on the road. If they play well early, that defense can beat anyone. But I can't say that I disagree wholeheartedly here with PJ. It's tough to deny Georgia getting points.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's all great points. Jenks made a great point, too. Georgia's used to this week, right? I mean, they've played in the SEC championship game in Atlanta a bunch of times, so they know what it's all about. They know what comes with it. Obviously, Texas has played in Big 12 title games, so they know what it's about, too. But, I mean, the game's in Atlanta. It's an hour and a half away from Athens. They're going to have the home field, so I think it's going to be a really good game. I like Georgia to win it, though. But, Jenks, the beauty is this game's kind of a free roll, you know? I mean, even if Texas is losing, they're still in the playoffs. So, obviously, you'd love to get the bye, win the SEC, but that's what's kind of nice is worst case they lose, still in the playoffs.
Exactly. For both teams, yeah.
For both teams.
You guys are way too nice, way too civilized. I wanted to fight, Jenks. And you're like, well, PJ is still right on several regards.
He's a good better. I mean, I'm preparing myself mentally for a loss. I hate to say that. It's still Georgia, and here's what it comes down to. Until I see, and I think they can because they've gotten better, until I see the Texas offensive line be able to handle the Georgia defensive line, I think that's the key matchup in the trenches, then I think the edge goes to Georgia. I think Texas can win this game, but based on what I've seen thus far, I will lean Georgia. It's tough. The number's the number. It's right there.
Well, PJ, let me ask you something. As an Alabama fan, would you be rooting for Georgia? Have you seen the line movement at some of these books where Alabama has gone from plus 105 to make the college football playoff at one book, and now they are minus 200? Is there a pathway for Alabama to get in? Will you be rooting for Georgia on that account? So your win, counts for more against Georgia.
Exactly. Yep. You want them to be SEC champs, no doubt. Chelsea, it's all about what happens tonight. They have to be number 11 in the rankings. If they're not ahead of South Carolina or Ole Miss or Miami, they have no chance because obviously none of those teams play this week, so they couldn't jump them after all the games this week. I think they will be because they're ahead of Ole Miss in the rankings. They beat South Carolina head-to-head. And Miami just doesn't have a rank win this season. It feels like even though they're only a 2-loss team, they really should be like a 4 or 5-loss team. So if Bama's number 11 in the rankings tonight, Clemson loses to SMU on Saturday, and the ACC only gets one team in, I think that opens the door for Bama to get in. So I do think there's a path. People are saying that even if SMU loses, that Bama might be in. I don't agree with that. I don't think that'll happen. I think Clemson losing would be the only path. So because SMU's favored in the game, and a lot of people feel like Bama's going to be number 11 tonight in the rankings, I think there's a path there for them to get in.
PJ, Big Ten, Penn State, Oregon. Does Oregon continue to roll, and does James Franklin continue to James Franklin? Or do the Nittany Lions and Double D have a chance here?
I think this is going to be a better game than people think. God, am I going to come on this show and give out a pick against Texas and Penn State? That would really be good for me, wouldn't I? I like Penn State, though.
You would not be invited back.
No, I would not. I like Penn State, though, guys, in the first half, plus 2.5. I've gone back and looked at Oregon in some of the big games this season when they played Ohio State, when they played Wisconsin. Ohio State, they were only up 1 at half. Wisconsin, they were trailing in that game. So they've been kind of slow starters in these big games, and then they make adjustments. They go into the locker room and they figure it out. That Boise State game too earlier in the year, they were down 20-14 at half. So Jenks said it. The narrative around Penn State, James Franklin, can he win one of these big games? That's why I don't want to get involved in the full game spread in all 60 minutes. I think Penn State's going to have a good game plan, though. I think they can hang around and keep it close, especially in the first half. So I'll take Penn State plus 2.5 to keep it close against Oregon.
All right, so we have a couple minutes left. How about we go to the ACC? Clemson and SMU. It feels like SMU has been flying under the radar for most of the season, but it feels like they deserve some respect. This line's pretty tight, though. I believe it's 3.5. Or no, that's the Oregon game. 2.5. SMU favored by 2.5. Which way are you leaning on this one?
I like SMU. I'd probably just take a money line at minus 135. Guys, this was crazy. So the opener in this game was Clemson minus 2.5, and then that went away really quick. It was a pick'em, and then overnight, heading into Monday, you saw even more SMU money come in, and they're 2.5-point favorites. I get it why Clemson over the favorite, right? It's Clemson. They've been in the ACC championship a million times. You kind of know that Dabo will get them ready for a game like this. SMU's first year in the ACC. They've had a good year, but they haven't really beaten anybody all that good. But I just think SMU's better. And you look at Clemson this season, they haven't had that difficult to schedule. And the three best teams that they've played, they've lost to. They lost to Georgia, Louisville, and South Carolina on Saturday. So Clemson hasn't really beaten that many good teams, and SMU's a solid team. They can really score. They got a good defense too. So I like SMU to win the game, and I would just take a minus 135. I don't know if SMU is a team that could make noise in the playoff, but they're solid. They got playmakers on offense. I think they'll get the job done against Clemson.
Oh, I agree with you there. I want to see SMU. I think it's just kind of fun to see SMU after, God, years and years of trying to get back to the forefront here, playing for something. He is the host of Send It In weekdays at 1 o'clock on the BetQL Network, co-host of Tailgate Kickoff Saturday mornings from 9 to 10 in the East, and also co-host of Inside the Betting Lines from 1 to 5 Eastern Time. It is our buddy PJ Glasser. PJ, appreciate it, man.
Thanks, guys. Have a good week.
Hey, you too. That was fun. I know you were trying to get me to come after PJ. I don't know. I'm trying to reset my expectations. And this game is on my birthday, by the way. You know, I don't want to be disappointed in my birthday. I know.
Come on, Texas.
Come on,
Texas. Do it for Jinx.
Do it for me. Come on, do it for a guy you don't care about. You can do it. Oh, we're just developing characters right and left here. Come on next year on the show. We'll chat with the donkey. How does he feel about the wagering whale? It is a daily tip from BetQL, presented by BetMGM.
Coming up, Jenks and Chelsea give out their best bets here on the BetQL Network, presented by BetMGM, the sportsbook born in Vegas. Let's get back to the Daily Tip with Chelsea Messenger and Michael Jenkins on the BetQL Network, presented by BetMGM. The sportsbook born in Vegas. Download the app today. Please gamble responsibly.
Let's do it! It is the Daily Tip from BetQL, presented by BetMGM. She's Chelsea Messenger, live in Nashville, Tennessee. I'm Michael Jenkins, live in the nation's capital. Best bets coming up. And the Donkster. Feel like he's firing up. We talked about Max the Wagering Whale earlier in the show, which we are lobbying for Max to be a new character on BetQL Daily and for Sammy P to voice him. And I don't know, the Donkster has feelings about that. He's in his feelings right now, so we'll get to that. Now, you're getting a dusting there in Nashville. And I'm wondering, a dusting. So the question is, are you going to be able to stay at home today with Blake, or is she going to school? Or she doesn't go to school, does she? Does she?
Well, it's Mother's Day out, and they operate on the school schedule. So that's why I was checking the school closing. So if Sumner County schools are out, she doesn't go to Mother's Day out. Right now, we are seeing no closings for Sumner County. So it looks like I will be making the trek to school. I'm a little nervous driving in the snow. And I understand that it's just a dusting, but I'm not even good at driving in general. Like, Jenks, you should try to see me parallel park. It's
how is that?
I feel like there's like a small crowd that like gathers and they're like, oh my God. They grab their popcorn, and after about 15 turns and 20 minutes, people are like, I don't know if she's going to pull it off. But, on the 16th turn of the wheel, I finally make it into my parallel parking spot. So not a great driver, not doing much for the stereotypes of female drivers. So thoughts and prayers with me as I drive my daughter into school with a dusting of snow on the roads.
You can do it. I remember when I was learning to drive, and we had our teachers were like coaches that did this sort of part-time and taught us. And small town Texas. And of course, I'd read the handbook on how to parallel park. You do this, you do this, you do this. And Coach Hagler, John Hagler, he goes, Jenkins, just do this. He just threw the book aside. He goes, pull up parallel. All right. Now turn to the right, and I did. He goes, straighten up. I go, okay. Back to the left. Boom. In. And he just simplified things in a way. And I was like, oh my. So I'm not great at it because I don't have a car. But when I need to parallel park, I'm actually pretty decent at it because my coach threw out this book and said, let me tell you the easiest way. Just cut through this nonsense, and I'll tell you the way to do it. And that lesson just always stuck with me. It just blew my mind because I was studying like, okay, I got to do this. I got to line up this way. I got to do this. And he was just like, nah, do this. And it worked.
I feel like certain things, like you learn way more by experience as opposed to like studying in a book. I feel like most things in life are like that, right?
Yeah, I agree.
With the exception of like hardcore academia, like maybe history. I don't know. I'm not in the medical field. Like maybe you got to study a lot for that, but other than that, I feel like most things are like, I would rather somebody have a lot of experience than somebody who's been studying up. If somebody comes into my room, like I'll give the example. When I was giving birth and I said, listen, she is a great student. She's never done this, but would you like, this 21-year-old med student to do your epidural? I gave a loud response that was a resounding hell no. Please no. Give me somebody with experience.
I agree with you wholeheartedly there. The experience always matter as opposed to a textbook, right? Like a textbook, no experience, a lot of facts. Sometimes you can get confused by that. No confusion as to what's coming up next on BetQL Daily. Rick Camp from Fat Stacks will talk about the NBA Cup. Yes! Yes! Let's go! It's NBA Cup time, guys. Oh, championship week, college football. Boring. Let's talk about the NBA Cup. They'll do it next. If you missed our conversation with BJ Glasser from BetQL, sent it in. He had his best bets lined up and ready to go, especially in the college game. We talked about the SEC championship, the Mountain West championship, Big Ten championship as well. To get that and a whole lot more, all you have to do is find each and every show, each and every segment from this show by downloading and subscribing to the Daily Tip wherever you get your pods. All right, let's find out who we like tonight.
Time to place your bets.
Chelsea Messenger, a winner last night. Where are you going tonight?
Yeah, gonna go to the NBA Cup, your favorite, Jenks. If you've been following along, the San Antonio Spurs actually have a shot to move on to the next stage of the vaunted NBA Cup. Right now, sitting at 3-1 in group play. So tonight they're playing the Suns. And who I'm going to be looking at is Wemby. Victor Wembanyama has been on an absolute tear as of late. In his last 10 games, he's averaging 32 points per game. So I'm going to go there. I'm going to go over 24.5 points for Wemby tonight against the Suns, who matchup-wise is a good one for Wemby tonight. If you look at their overall schedule, giving up the fourth most points to opposing centers, and their starting center, Nurkic, is out for this one. So it should be a nice matchup for Wemby in a meaningful game. I know it's not the NBA postseason, but these are the meaningful games for teams like the Spurs out to prove something. So when you play in these type of games, you lean on the superstars. And why not lean more heavily on your freak athlete superstar in Victor Wembanyama? So I'm going to go over 24.5 points for Victor Wembanyama tonight against the Suns.
Chelsea, I like that you're going back to basketball. I got a couple of hockey plays for you. First one is Bruins on the three-way money line hosting the Wings, just minus 125. We're already seeing this number at minus 200 in some places. And even Dylan said this, dude, you're on the Bruins. Slow start for the Bruins, but they made a coaching change. Now Joe Sacco leading the way, so they've been much better on offense. And this is really a fade of Ville Husso for the Red Wings. He's given up at least 3 goals in every start this season, has a goals against average of 4.90, and Patrick Kane out for Detroit. Bruins get the dub at home in regulation. It's minus 125 at BetMGM.
Ooh. Now, I only have one official play, but I do have a lean.
Okay.
I'm trying to tread lightly in college basketball because I feel like there's not enough of a sample size for some of these teams. But there is a big rivalry game tonight that maybe you haven't heard of. UNCW and ECU. This series has been played for more than 60 years. And this has been a tough rivalry matchup for both these games. If you look at, the series history, they've had 34 games decided by single digits and 11 that have landed within 3 points. So tonight, UNCW getting 5 on the road at ECU. I feel like I would lean towards UNCW, but I don't feel like I have enough ammo to make it an official play. But if I had a lean in college hoops, there you go.
Okay, I got one more hockey play on the cards. I just put this in, so maybe I'm pushing it a little bit, but I looked at the numbers, and I like it. Wild money line, minus 145 hosting the Canucks, another good team. This is the end of a road trip for the Canucks. Now, they've had a day off, but they played 2 straight overtime games. Could be a little worn out. The main factor here is that Minnesota defense, which allows only 2.33 goals per game. Philip Gustafsson in net, he's great. And let's just call this for what it is. A really good price on one of the best teams in the NHL. Minnesota is 16-4-4 this season. They're at home. You get them to win outright at minus 145. You got to take it. I am going with the Wild. Anything else, Chelsea?
No, I'm all out.
All out? Okay, well, we always go all in when it comes to Twitch. You can stream each and every show on the BetQL network. It's easy to do. Twitch.tv/BetQL. Twitch.tv/BetQL. All right, so early in this show, we were talking about a potential character called Max the Wagering Whale, and the Donkster has been listening, and I think he has some words. Donkster, get on in here.
Yes, good morning, everyone. I have to say, I really don't like what I've been hearing today.
What are you talking about?
Who is this stupid wagering whale character? He sounds like a real loser. Oh, I'm so depressed and so sad. I lost a bet. Sammy P doesn't like me.
Wow, you sound a little jealous.
Dad, I'm not jealous. This guy needs to take a Prozac and get punched in the snout.
Okay. That's a lot. Need your bets, please.
Oh, I'm so sad. The Wizards aren't good this year. Sammy P doesn't.
Okay, we get it. We get it.
Okay, Dad. Cavaliers, minus 16, hosting the Wizards. Flames, money line, minus 135 against the Blue Jackets.
Well, that was quite a journey. What's coming up next on BetQL Daily? For that, we bring in the aforementioned Sammy P. Sam Panayotovich. Sam, my guy, what's going on?
Always an experience listening to that 60 seconds. You never quite know what's coming out of that donkey's mouth. All I can say also is that Jameis Winston, I hope he plays forever, just for the post-game quotes.
Yes.
I wish the Lord would deliver me from pick sixes. How great is that? How great is that?
Amazing.
I think that's in Ecclesiastes, if I'm not mistaken. All right, so let's get you up to speed. So we have been kind of rallying for the other shows to have mascots. So we've thought of some ideas. So we have the Chalk Donkey, the Donkster. How about Max Whale? Max the Wagering Whale. And he can have this like really deep voice, and he complains a lot. Jenks, do you want to do the honors? Introduce Max Whale?
I think we should let Sam. This is Sammy P. This is your chance.
Oh, open-ended.
We can have an inflatable animal on every show. The BetQL network needs it. And I think, look, you can do voices, right? I feel like it's going to be perfect for the BetQL Daily.
I've actually never done a voice, Dad.
If you want to be a serious show on this network, you have to have a mascot. That's how it lays out. I'm sorry.
Okay, so I was blindsided by this. Can I come up with 3 answers for Thursday and get back to you, please?
Absolutely.
Okay,
it takes some time. No question.
When you said inflatable, though, my mind went like that. I didn't know where we were.
Oh, no.
You're like,
oh, no, it has to be an animal.
Yeah. Sorry.
Not a girl.
To your credit, the Donkster is almost always a perv on this show, so I don't blame you for kind of going in that direction. But
First thought is Gary the Gambling Gorilla, but I need time.
Oh! Also a good one.
Gary. Like that.
That's a good one. See? Give it some time. Let it breathe a little bit. Sammy P, have a great show. That's going to do it for us here on the Daily Tip from BetQL, presented by BetMGM. For Chelsea Messenger, I am merely Michael Jenkins. Go out, have a fantastic Tuesday, and we'll see you tomorrow morning. Bye.
You've been listening to The Daily Tip, presented by BetMGM, the sportsbook born in Vegas. Download the app today. If you missed any of the show, listen back anytime on the new and improved Odyssey app.